Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri. The Inferno, Canto 1. Midway along the journey of our life, I woke to find myself in a dark wood, for I had wandered off from the straight path. How hard it is to tell what it was like, this wood of wilderness, savage and stubborn. The thought of it brings back all my old fears. A bitter place, death could scarce be bitterer. But if I would show the good that came of it, I must talk about things other than the good. How I entered there, I cannot truly say. I had become so sleepy at the moment when I first strayed, leaving the path of truth. But when I found myself at the foot of a hill, at the edge of the wood's beginning, down in the valley, where I first felt my heart plunge deep in fear, I raised my head and saw the hilltop shawled in morning rays of light sent from the planet that leads men straight ahead on every road. And then only did terror start subsiding in my heart's lake, which rose to heights of fear that night I spent in deepest desperation. Just as a swimmer, still with panting breath, now safe upon the shore, out of the deep, might turn for one last look at the dangerous waters, so I, although my mind was turned to flee, turned round to gaze once more upon the past that never let a living soul escape. I rested my tired body there a while, and then began to climb the barren slope. I dragged my stronger foot and limped along. Beyond the point the slope begins to rise, sprang up a leopard, trim and very swift. It was covered by a pelt of many spots. And everywhere I looked, the beast was there, blocking my way. So time and time again, I was about to turn and go back down. The hour was early in the morning then. The sun was climbing up with those same stars that had accompanied it on the world's first day. The day divine love set their beauty turning. So the hour and sweet season of creation encouraged me to think I could get past that gaudy beast, wild in its spotted pelt. But then good hope gave way and fear returned when the figure of a lion loomed up before me. And he was coming straight toward me, it seemed, with head raised high, and furious with hunger. The air around him seemed to fear his presence. And now a she-wolf came, that in her leanness seemed racked with every kind of greediness. How many people she has brought to grief! This last beast brought my spirit down so low with fear that seized me at the sight of her. I lost all hope of going up the hill. As a man who, rejoicing in his gains, suddenly seeing his gain turn to loss, will grieve as he compares his then and now, so she made me do, that relentless beast, coming toward me, slowly, step by step. She forced me back to where the sun is mute. While I was rushing down to that low place, my eyes made out a figure coming toward me, one grown faint, perhaps from too much silence. And when I saw him standing in this wasteland, "Have pity on me," I cried to him, "whichever you are, shade or living man." "No longer living man, though once I was," he said, "and my parents were from Lombardy, both of them were Mantuans by birth. I was born, though somewhat late, sub Julio, and lived in Rome when good Augustus reigned, when still the false and lying gods were worshipped. I was a poet, and sang of that just man, son of Anchises, who sailed off from Troy, after the burning of proud Ilium. But why retreat to so much misery? Why not climb up this blissful mountain here, the beginning and the source of all man's joy? Are you then Virgil? Are you then that fount from which pours forth so rich a stream of words?" I said to him, bowing my head modestly. "O light and honor of the other poets, may my long years of study and that deep love that made me search your verses help me now. You are my teacher, the first of all my authors, and you alone the one from whom I took the noble style that was to bring me honor. You see, the beast that forced me to retreat, save me from her, I beg you, famous sage. She makes me tremble, the blood throbs in my veins." "But you must journey down another road," he answered, when he saw me lost in tears, "if you ever hope to leave this wilderness. This beast, the one you cry about in fear, allows no soul to succeed along her path. She blocks his way and puts an end to him. She is by nature so perverse and vicious, her craving belly is never satisfied, still hungering for food the more she eats. She mates with many creatures, and will go on mating with more until the greyhound comes and tracks her down to make her die in anguish. He will not feed on either land or money. His wisdom, love, and virtue shall sustain him. He will be born between Feltro and Feltro. He comes to save that fallen Italy, for which the maid Camilla gave her life, and Turnus Nisus Euryalus died of wounds. And he will hunt for her through every city until he drives her back to hell once more, whence envy first unleashed her on mankind. And so, I think it best you follow me for your own good, and I shall be your guide and lead you out through an eternal place, where you will hear desperate cries and see tormented shades, some old as hell itself, and know what second death is from their screams. And later you will see those who rejoice while they are burning, for they have hope of coming, wherever it may be, to join the blessed. To whom, if you too wish to make the climb, a spirit, worthier than I, must take you. I shall go back, leaving you in her care. Because that emperor dwelling on high will not let me lead any to his city, since I in life rebelled against his law. Everywhere he reigns, and there he rules. There is his city, there is his high throne. O the happy one he makes his citizen. And I to him, Poet, I beg of you, in the name of God, that God you never knew, save me from this evil place and worse. Lead me there to the place you spoke about, that I may see the gate St. Peter guards, and those whose anguish you have told me of. Then he moved on, and I moved close behind him. Canto 2. The day was fading, and the darkening air was releasing all the creatures on our earth from their daily tasks, and I, one man alone, was making ready to endure the battle of the journey and of the pity it involved, which my memory, unerring, shall now retrace. O Muses, O high genius, help me now. O memory that wrote down what I saw, here your true excellence shall be revealed. Then I began. O poet, come to guide me. Tell me if you think my worth sufficient before you trust me to this arduous road. You wrote about young Silvius's father, who went beyond with flesh corruptible, with all his senses to the immortal realm. But if the adversary of all evil was kind to him, considering who he was, and the consequence that was to come from him, this cannot seem to thoughtful men unfitting, for in the highest heaven he was chosen, father of glorious Rome and all of her people. And both the city and her lands, in truth, were established as the place of holiness, where the successors of great Peter sit. And from this journey you celebrate in verse, Aeneas learned for those things that were to bring victory for him, and for Rome, the papal seat. Then later, the chosen vessel, Paul, ascended to bring back confirmation of that faith, which is the first step on salvation's road. But why am I to go? Who allows me to? I am not Aeneas, I am not Paul. Neither I nor any man would think me worthy. And so, if I should undertake the journey, I fear it might turn out an act of folly. You are wise, you see more than my words express. As one who unwills what he willed, will change his purpose with some new second thought, completely quitting what he first had started, so I did, standing there on that dark slope, thinking, ending the beginning of that venture I was so quick to take up at the start. If I have truly understood your words, that shade of magnanimity replied, your soul is burdened with that cowardice, which often weighs so heavily on man. It turns him from a noble enterprise, like a frightened beast that shies at its own shadow. To free you from this fear, let me explain the reason I came here, the words I heard that first time I felt pity for your soul. I was among those dead who are suspended when a lady summoned me. She was so blessed and beautiful, I implored her to command me. With eyes of light more bright than any star, in low soft tone she started to address me, in her own language, with an angel's voice. O noble soul, courteous Mantuan, whose fame the world continues to preserve, and will preserve as long as the world there is, my friend, who is no friend of fortune's, strays on a desert slope. So many obstacles have crossed his path, his fright has turned him back. I fear he may have gone so far astray, from what report has come to me in heaven, that I may have started to his aid too late. Now go, and with your elegance of speech, with whatever may be needed for his freedom, Give him your help, and thereby bring me solace. I am Beatrice, who urges you to go. I come from the place I am longing to return to. Love moved me, as it moves me now to speak. When I returned to stand before the Lord, often I shall sing your praises to him. And then she spoke no more. And I began, O Lady of Grace, through whom mankind alone may go beyond all worldly things contained within this sphere that makes the smallest round. Your plea fills me with happy eagerness. To have obeyed already would still seem late. You needed only to express your wish. But tell me how you dared to make this journey all the way down to this point of spacelessness, call away from your spacious home that calls you back. Because your question searches for deep meaning, I shall explain in simple words, she said, just why I have no fear of coming here. A man must stand in fear of just those things that truly have the power to do us harm. Of nothing else, for nothing else is fearsome. God gave me such a nature through his grace. The torments you must bear cannot affect me, nor are the fires of hell a threat to me. A gracious lady sits in heaven grieving for what happened to the one I send you to, and her compassion breaks heaven's stern decree. She called Lucia, and making her request, she said, Your faithful one is now in need of you, and to you I now recommend his soul. Lucia, the enemy of cruelty, hastened to make her way to where I was, sitting by the side of ancient Rachel, and said to me, Beatrice, God's true praise, will you not help the one whose love was such it made him leave the vulgar crowd for you? Do you not hear the pity of this weeping? Do you not see what death it is that threatens him along that river the sea shall never conquer? There never was a worldly person living more anxious to promote his selfish gains than I was at the sound of words like these, to leave my holy seat and come down here and place my trust in you, and your noble speech that honors you and all those who have heard it. When she had finished reasoning, she turned her shining eyes away, and there were tears. How eager then I was to come to you! And I have come to you just as she wished, and I have freed you from the beast that stood blocking the quick way up the mount of bliss. So what is wrong? Why? Why do you delay? Why are you such a coward in your heart? Why aren't you bold and free of all your fear? When three such gracious ladies, who are blessed, watch out for you up there in heaven's court, and my words, too, bring promise of such good. As little flowers from the frosty night are closed and limp, and when the sun shines down on them, they rise to open on their stem, my wilted strength began to bloom within me, and such warm courage flowed into my heart that I spoke like a man set free of fear. O she, compassionate, who moved to help me, and you, all kindness, in obeying quick, those words of truth she spoke with her for you. You and the words she spoke have moved my heart with such desire to continue onward, that now I have returned to my first purpose. Let us start, for both our wills joined now are one. You are my guide, you are my Lord and teacher. These were my words to him, and when he moved, I entered on that deep and rugged road. Canto 3. I am the way into the doleful city. I am the way into eternal grief. I am the way to a forsaken race. Justice it was that moved my great Creator. Divine omnipotence created me, and highest wisdom joined with primal love. Before me nothing but eternal things were made, and I shall last eternally. Abandon every hope, all you who enter. I saw these words spelled out in somber colors, inscribed along the ledge above a gate. Master, I said, these words I see are cruel. He answered me, speaking with experience. Now here you must leave all distrust behind. Let all your cowardice die on this spot. We are at the place where earlier I said you could expect to see the suffering race of souls who lost the good of intellect. Placing his hand on mine, smiling at me in such a way that I was reassured, he led me into those mysteries. Here sighs and cries and shrieks of lamentation echoed throughout the starless air of hell. At first those sounds resounding made me weep. Tongues confused, a language strained in anguish, with cadences of anger, shrill outcries, and raucous groans that joined with sounds of hands. raising a whirling storm that turns itself forever through the air of endless black, like grains of sand whirling when a whirlwind blows. And I, in the midst of all this circling horror, began, "Teacher, what are those sounds I hear? What souls are these so overwhelmed by grief?" And he to me, "This wretched state of being is the fate of those sad souls who lived a life, but lived it with no blame and with no praise. They are mixed with that repulsive choir of angels neither faithful nor unfaithful to God their God, who undecided stood but for themselves. Heaven, to keep its beauty, cast them out, but even hell itself would not receive them, for fear the damned might glory over them." And I, "Master, what torments do they suffer that force them to lament so bitterly?" He answered, "I will tell you in a few words. These wretches have no hope of truly dying, and this blind life they lead is so abject it makes them envy every other fate. The world will not record their having been there. Heaven's mercy and its justice turn from them. Let's not discuss them, look and pass them by." And so I looked and saw a kind of banner rushing ahead, whirling with aimless speed, as though it were not ever to take a stand. Behind it an interminable train of souls pressed on, so many that I wondered how death could have undone so great a number. When I recognized a few of them, I saw the shade of the one who must have been the coward who made the great refusal. At once I understood, and I was sure this was that sect of evil souls who were hateful to God and to his enemies. These wretches, who had never truly lived, went naked, and were stung and stung again by the hornets and the wasps that circled them, and made their faces run with blood in streaks. Their blood, mixed with their tears, dripped to their feet, and disgusting maggots collected in the pus. And when I looked beyond this crowd, I saw a throng upon the shore of a wide river, which made me ask, "Master, I would like to know, who are these people, and what law is this, that makes these souls so eager for the crossing? All I can see, as I can see, even in this dim light." And he, "All this will be made plain to you as soon as we shall come to the stop a while upon the sorrowful shore of Acheron." And I, with eyes cast down in shame, for fear that I had perhaps spoken out of turn, said nothing more until we reached the river. And suddenly, coming toward us in a boat, a man of years whose ancient hair was white shouted at us, "Woe to you, perverted souls! Give up all hope of ever seeing heaven. I come to lead you to the other shore, into eternal darkness, ice and fire. And you, the living soul, you over there, get away from all these people who are dead." But when he saw I did not move aside, he said, "Another way, by other ports, not here, shall you pass to reach the other shore. A lighter skiff than this must carry you." And my guide, "Charon, this is no time for anger. If it is so willed, there where the power is for what is willed, that's all you need to know." These words brought silence to the woolly cheeks of the ancient steersman of the livid marsh, whose eyes were set in glowing wheels of fire. But all those souls there, naked, in despair, changed color, and their teeth began to chatter at the sound of his announcement of their doom. They were cursing God, cursing their own parents, the human race, the time, the place, the seed of their beginning, and their day of birth. Then all together, weeping bitterly, they packed themselves along the wicked shore that waits for every man who fears not God. The devil, Charon, with eyes of glowing coals, summons them all together with a signal, and with an oar he strikes the laggard sinner. As in autumn when the leaves begin to fall, one after the other, until the branch is witness to the spoils spread on the ground, so did the evil seed of Adam's fall drop from that shore to the boat one at a time, at the signal, like the falcon to its lure. Away they go before the darkened waters, and before they reach the other side to land, a new throng starts collecting on this side. "My son," the gentle master said to me, "all those who perish in the wrath of God assemble here from all parts of the earth. They want to cross the river, they are eager. It is divine justice that spurs them on, turning the fear they have into desire. A good soul never comes to make this crossing, so if Charon grumbles at the sight of you, you see now what his words are really saying. He finished speaking, and the grim terrain shook violently, and the fright it gave me, even now in recollection, makes me sweat. Out of the tear-drenched land a wind rose, which blasted forth into a reddish light, knocking my senses out of me completely, and I fell as one falls tired into sleep. Canto 4. A heavy clap of thunder. I awoke from the deep sleep that drugged my mind, startled, the way one is when shaken out of sleep. I turned my rested eyes from side to side, already on my feet, and, staring hard, I tried my best to find out where I was. And this is what I saw. I found myself upon the brink of grief's abysmal valley that collects the thunderings of endless cries. So dark and deep and nebulous it was. Try as I might to force my sight below, I could not see the shape of anything. "Let us descend into the sightless world," began the poet, his face with deathly pale. "I will go first, and you will follow me." And I, aware of his changed color, said, "But how can I go on if you are frightened? You are my constant strength when I lose heart." And he to me, "The anguish of the souls that are down here paints my face with pity, which you have wrongly mistaken to be fear. Let us go, the long road urges us." He entered then, leading the way for me, down into the first circle of the abyss. Down there, to judge only by what I heard, there were no wails, but just the sounds of sighs, rising and trembling through the timeless air. The sounds of sighs of untormented grief, burdening these groups, diverse and teeming, made up of men and women and of infants. Then the good master said, "You do not ask what sort of souls are these you see around you. Now you should know before we go on farther. They have not sinned. But their great worth alone was not enough, for they did not know baptism, which is the gateway to the faith you follow. And if they came before the birth of Christ, they did not worship God the way one should. I myself am a member of this group. For this defect, and for no other guilt, we here are lost. In this hope alone we suffer. Cut off from hope, we live on in desire." The words I heard weighed heavy on my heart. To think that souls as virtuous as these were suspended in that limbo, and forever. "Tell me, my teacher, tell me, O my master," I began, wishing to have confirmed by him the teachings of unerring Christian doctrine. "Did any ever leave here, through his merit or with another's help, and go on to bliss?" And he, who understood my hidden question, answered, "I was a novice in this place, when I saw a mighty Lord descend to us, who wore the sign of victory as his crown. He took from us the shade of our first parent, of Abel, his good son, of Noah too, and of obedient Moses, who made the laws, Abram the patriarch, David the king, Israel with his father and his children, with Rachel, whom he worked so hard to win. And many more he chose for blessedness. And you should know, before these souls were taken, no human soul had ever reached salvation." We did not stop our journey while he spoke, but continued on our way along the woods. I say the woods, for souls were thick as trees. We had not gone too far from where I woke, when I made out a fire up ahead, a hemisphere of light that lit the dark. We were still at some distance from that place, but close enough for me vaguely to see that honorable souls possessed that spot. O glory of the sciences and arts, who are these souls enjoying special honors, dwelling apart from all the others here? And he to me, "The honored name they bear, that still resounds above in your own world, wins heaven's favor for them in this place." And as he spoke, I heard a voice announce, "Now let us honor our illustrious poet. His shade that left is now returned to us." And when the voice was silent and all was quiet, I saw 4 mighty shades approaching us, their faces showing neither joy nor sorrow. Then my good master started to explain. "Observe the one who comes with sword in hand, leaning the 3 as if he were their master. It is the shade of Homer, sovereign poet, and coming second, Horace the satirist. Ovid is the 3rd, and last comes Lucan. Since they all share one name with me, the name you heard resounding in that single voice, they honor me and do well doing so. And I saw gathered there the noble school of the master singer of sublimest verse, who soars above all others like an eagle. And after they had talked a while together, they turned and with a gesture welcomed me, and at that sign I saw my master smile. Greater honor still they deigned to grant me. They welcomed me as one of their own, so that I numbered sixth among such minds. We walked along together toward the shining light, discussing things that here are best kept silent, as they were most fitting for discussion. We reached the boundaries of a splendid castle that 7 times was circled by high walls, defended by a sweetly flowing stream. We walked right over it, as on hard ground. Through 7 gates I passed with those wise spirits, and when we reached a meadow fresh in bloom. There people whose eyes were calm and grave, whose bearing told of great authority. Seldom they spoke, and always quietly. Then moving to one side we reached a place, spread out and luminous, higher than before, allowing us to view all who were there. And right before us on the lustrous green, the mighty shades were pointed out to me. My heart felt glory when I looked at them. There was Electra standing with a group, and among whom I saw Hector and Aeneas, and Caesar, falcon-dyed and fully armed. I saw Camilla and Penthesilea, and across the way I saw the Latian king, with Lavinia, his daughter, by his side. I saw the Brutus who drove out the Tarquin, Lucretia, Julia, Marcia, and Cornelia. Off by himself I noticed Saladin, and when I raised my eyes a little higher, I saw the master sage of those who know, sitting with his philosophic family. All gaze at him, all pay their homage to him, and there I saw both Socrates and Plato, each closer to his side than any other. Democritus, who said the world was chance, Diogenes, Thales, Anaxagoras, Empedocles, Zeno, and Heraclitus. I saw the one who classified our herbs, Dioscorides, I mean, and I saw Orpheus, Tully, Linus, Seneca the moralist, Euclid the geometer, and Ptolemy, Hippocrates, Galen, Avicenna, and Averroes, who made the commentary. I cannot tell about them all in full. My theme is long and urges me ahead. Often I must omit things I have seen. The company of 6 becomes just 2. My wise guide leads me by another way, out of the quiet into tempestuous air. I come to a place where no light is. Canto 5. This way I went, descending from the first into the second round, that holds less space but much more pain, stinging the soul to wailing. There stands Minos grotesquely, and he snarls, examining the guilty at the entrance. He judges and dispatches tale and coils. By this I mean that when the evil soul appears before him, it confesses all, and he who is the expert judge of sins knows to what place in hell the soul belongs. The times he wraps his tale around himself tell just how far the sinner must go down. The damned keep crowding up in front of him. They pass along to judgment one by one. They speak, they hear, and then are hurled below. O you who come to the place where pain is host, Minos spoke out when he caught sight of me, putting aside the duties of his office. Be careful how you enter and whom you trust. It's easy to get in, but don't be fooled. And my guide said to him, Why keep on shouting? Do not attempt to stop his fated journey. It is so willed that where the power is for what is willed, that's all you need to know. And now the notes of anguish start to play upon my ears, and now I find myself where sounds on sounds of weeping pound at me. I came to a place where no light shone at all, bellowing like the sea racked by a tempest, when warring winds attack it from both sides. The infernal storm, eternal in its rage, sweeps and drives the spirits with its blast. It whirls them, lashing them with punishment. When they are swept back past their place of judgment, then come the shrieks, laments, and anguished cries. There they blaspheme God's almighty power. I learn that to this place of punishment, all those who sin in lust have been condemned, those who make reason slave to appetite. And as the wings of starlings in the winter bear them along in widespread crowded flocks, so does that wind propel the evil spirits. Now here, then there, and up and down, it drives them with never any hope to comfort them, hope not of rest, but even of suffering less. And just like cranes in flight, chanting their lays, stretching an endless line in their formation, I saw approaching, crying in their laments, spirits carried along by the battling winds. And so I asked, Teacher, tell me, what souls are these punished in the sweep of the black wind? The first of those whose story you should know, my master wasted no time answering, was Empress over lands of many tongues. Her vicious tastes had so corrupted her, she licensed every form of lust with laws to cleanse the stain of scandal she had spread. She is Semiramis, who legend says was Ninus's wife as well as his successor. She governed all the land the Sultan rules. The next is she who killed herself for love and broke faith with the ashes of Zacchaeus. And there is Cleopatra, who loved men's lusting. See Helen there, the root of evil woe, lasting long years, and see the great Achilles, who lost his life to love in final combat. See Paris, Tristan, then more than 1,000 he pointed out to me, and named them all, those shades whom love cut off from life on earth. After I heard my teacher call the names of all these knights and ladies of ancient times, pity confused my senses, and I was dazed. I began, Poet, I would like with all my heart to speak to those two there, who move together and seem to be so light upon the winds. And he, You'll see when they are closer to us, if you entreat them by that love of theirs that carries them along, they'll come to you. When the winds bent their course in our direction, I raised my voice to them, O wearied souls, come speak with us, if it be not forbidden. As doves, called by desire to return to their sweet nest, with wings raised high and poised, float downward through the air, guided by will. So those two left the flock where Dido is, and came toward us through the malignant air. Such was the tender power of my call. O living creature, gracious and so kind, who makes your way here through this dingy air to visit us who stained the world with blood. If we would claim as friend the King of Kings, we would beseech him that he grant you peace, you who show pity for our atrocious plight. Whatever pleases you to hear or speak, we will hear, and we will speak about with you, as long as the wind, here where we are, is silent. The place where I was born lies on the shore, where the river Po, with its attendant streams, descends to seek its final resting place. Love, quick to kindle in the gentle heart, sees this one for the beauty of my body, torn from me, how it happens still offends me. Love, that excuses no one loved from loving, seized me so strongly with delight in him, that as you see, he never leaves my side. Love led us straight to sudden death together. Caina waits the one who quenched our lives. These were the words that came from them to us. When those offended souls had told their story, I bowed my head and kept it bowed until the poet said, What are you thinking of? When finally I spoke, I sighed. Alas, all those sweet thoughts, and oh, how much desiring, brought these two down to this agony. And then I turned to them and tried to speak. I said, Francesca, the torment that you suffer brings painful tears of pity to my eyes. But tell me, in that time of your sweet sighing, how, and by what signs, did love allow you to recognize your dubious desires? And she to me, There is no greater pain than to remember, in our present grief, past happiness, as well your teacher knows. But if your great desire is to learn the very root of such a love as ours, I shall tell you, but in words of flowing tears. One day we read, to pass the time away, of Lancelot, of how he fell in love. We were alone, innocent of suspicion. Time and again our eyes were brought together by the book we read, our faces flushed and paled. To the moment of one line alone we yielded. It was now when we read about those longed-for lips now being kissed by such a famous lover, that this one, who shall never leave my side, then kissed my mouth, and trembled as he did. Our Galahad was that book, and he who wrote it. That day we read no further. And all the while, the one of the two spirits spoke these words. The other wept, in such a way that pity blurred my senses. I swooned as though to die, and fell to hell's floor as a body dead falls. Canto 6. Regaining now my senses, which had fainted at the sight of these two who were kinsmen lovers, a piteous sight confusing me to tears, New suffering and new sinners' suffering appeared to me, no matter where I moved or turned my eyes, no matter where I gazed. I am in the third circle, in the round of rain, eternal, cursed, cold, and falling heavily, unchanging beat, unchanging quality. Thick hail and dirty water mixed with snow come down in torrents through the murky air, and the earth is stinking from this soaking rain. Cerberus, a ruthless and fantastic beast, with all three throats, howls out his dog-like sounds above the drowning sinners of this place. His eyes are red, his beard is slobbered black, his belly swollen, and he has claws for hands. He rips the spirits, flays and mangles them. Under the rain they howl like dogs, lying now on one side with the other as a screen, now on the other turning, these wretched sinners. When the slimy Cerberus caught sight of us, he opened up his mouths and showed his fangs. His body was one mass of twitching muscles. My master stooped, and spreading wide his fingers, he grabbed up heaping fistfuls of the mud, and flung it down into those greedy gullets. As a howling cur, hungering to get fed, quiets down with the first mouthful of his food, busy with eating, wrestling with that alone, so it was with all three filthy heads of the demon Cerberus, used to barking thunder on these dead souls who wished that they were deaf. We walked across this marsh of shades beaten down by the heavy rain, our feet pressing on their emptiness that looked like human form. Each sinner there was stretched out on the ground except for one who quickly sat up straight the moment that he saw us pass him by. "O you there being led through this inferno," he said, "try to remember who I am, for you had life before I gave up mine." I said, "The pain you suffer here perhaps disfigures you beyond all recognition. I can't remember seeing you before. But tell me who you are, assigned to grieve in this sad place, afflicted by such torture that, worse there well may be, but none more foul." "Your own city," he said, "so filled with envy, its cup already overflows the brim, once held me in the brighter life above. You citizens gave me the name of Cacho, and for my sin of gluttony I am damned, as you can see, to rain that beats me weak. As my sad, sunken soul is not alone, for all these sinners here share in my pain and in my sin." And that was his last word. "Cacho," I said to him, "your grievous state weighs down on me. It makes me want to weep. But tell me what will happen, if you know, to the citizens of that divided state. And are there any honest men among them? And tell me, why is it so plagued with strife?" And he replied, "After much contention, they will come to bloodshed. The rustic party will drive the other out by brutal means. Then it will come to pass, this side will fall within 3 suns, and the other side rise to power with the help of one now listing toward both sides. For a long time they will keep their heads raised high, holding the others down with crushing weight, no matter how these weep or squirm for shame. 2 just men there are, but no one listens, for pride, envy, avarice are the 3 sparks that kindle in men's hearts and set them burning." With this his mournful words came to an end. But I spoke back. "There's more I want to know. I beg you to provide me with more facts. Farinata and Tegiaio, who were so worthy, Jacopo Rusticucci, Arrigo, Mosca, and all the rest so bent on doing good. Where are they? Tell me what's become of them. One great desire tortures me, to know whether they taste heaven's sweetness or hell's gall." "They lie below with blacker souls," he said, "by different sins pushed down to different depths. If you keep going, you may see them all. But when you are once more in the sweet world, I beg you to remind our friends of me. I speak no more I answer you." He twisted his straight gaze into a squint and stared a while at me, then bent his head, falling to join his other sightless peers. My guide then said to me, "He'll wake no more until the day the angel's trumpet blows, when the unfriendly judge shall come down here. Each soul shall find again his wretched tomb, assume his flesh and take his human shape, and hear his fate resound eternally." And so we made our way through the filthy mess of muddy shades and slush, moving slowly, talking a little about the afterlife. I said, "Master, Will these torments be increased or lessened on the final judgment day, or will the pain be just the same as now? And he, remember your philosophy. The closer a thing comes to perfection, more keen will be its pleasure or its pain. Although this cursed race of punished souls shall never know the joy of true perfection, more perfect will they pain be than now. We circled round that curving road while talking, of more than I shall mention at this time, and came to where the ledge begins descending. There we found Plutus, mankind's arch-enemy.
Pape Satan, Papa Satan Alepe. The voice of Plutus clucked these words at us, and that kind sage, to whom all things were known, said reassuringly, "Do not let fear defeat you, for whatever be his power, he cannot stop our journey down this rock." Then he turned toward that swollen face of rage, crying, "Be quiet, cursed wolf of hell! Feed on the burning bile that rots your guts. This journey to the depths does have a reason, for it is willed on high, where Michael wrought a just revenge for the bold assault on God. As sails swollen by wind, when the ship's mast breaks, collapse, deflated, tangled in a heap, just so the savage beast fell to the ground." And then we started down a fourth abyss, making our way along the dismal slope, where all the evil of the world is dumped. Ah, God's avenging justice, who could heap up suffering and pain as strange as I saw here? How can we let our guilt bring us to this? As every wave Charybdis whirls to sea comes crashing against its countercurrent wave, so these folks here must dance their roundelay. More shades were here than anywhere above, and from both sides, to the sound of their own screams, straining their chests, they rolled enormous weights. And when they met and clashed against each other, they turned to push the other way, one side screaming, "Why hoard?" the other side, "Why waste?" And so they moved back around the gloomy circle, returning on both sides to opposite poles, to scream their shameful tune another time. Again they came to clash and turn and roll, forever in their semicircled joust, and I, my heart pierced through by such a sight, spoke out, "My master, please explain to me, who are these people here? Were they all priests, these tonsured souls I see there to our left?" He said, "In their first life, all you see here had such myopic minds they could not judge with moderation when it came to spending. Their barking voices make this clear enough. When they arrive at the 2 points on the circle where opposing guilts divide them into two, the ones who have the bald spot on their heads were priests and popes and cardinals, in whom avarice is most likely to prevail." And I, "Master, in such a group as this, I should be able to recognize a few who dirtied themselves by such crimes as these." And he replied, "Yours is an empty hope. Their undistinguished life that made them foul now makes it harder to distinguish them. Eternally the two will come to blows, then from the tomb they will be resurrected, these with tight fists, those without any hair. It was squandering and hoarding that have robbed them of the lovely world, and got them in this brawl. I will not waste choice words describing it. You see, my son, the short-lived mockery of all the wealth that is in fortune's keep, over which the human race is bickering. For all the gold that is or ever was, beneath the moon won't buy a moment's rest for even one among these weary souls. Master, now tell me what this fortune is you touched upon before. What is she like who holds all worldly wealth within her fists?" And he to me, "O foolish race of man, how overwhelming is your ignorance. Now listen while I tell you what she means. That one, whose wisdom knows infinity, made all the heavens and gave each one a guide, and each sphere shines on all the others. So light is spread with equal distribution. For worldly splendors he decreed the same, and ordained a guide and general ministress, who would at her discretion shift the world's vain wealth from nation to nation, house to house, with no chance of interference from mankind. So while one nation rules, another falls, according to whatever she decrees, her sentence hidden like a snake in the grass. Your knowledge has no influence on her, for she foresees, she judges, and she rules her kingdom as the other gods do theirs. Her changing changes never take a rest. Necessity keeps her in constant motion, as men come and go to take their turn with her. And this is she so crucified and cursed, even those in luck who should be praising her, instead revile her and condemn her acts. But she is blessed, and in her bliss hears nothing. With all God's joyful first created creatures, she turns her sphere, and blessed turns it with joy. Now, let's move down to greater wretchedness. The stars that rose when I set out for you are going down. We cannot stay too long. We cross the circle to its other bank, passing a spring that boils and overflows into a ditch the spring itself cut out. The water was a deeper dark than purse, and we, with its gray waves for company, made our way down along a rough, strange path. This dingy little stream, when it had reached the top of the gray malignant slopes, becomes a swamp that has the name of Styx. And I, intent on looking as we passed, saw muddy people moving in that marsh, all naked, with their faces scarred by rage. They fought each other, not with hands alone, but struck with head and chest and feet as well. With teeth they tore each other limb from limb. And the good teacher said, "My son, now see the souls of those that anger overcame. And I ask you to believe me when I say, beneath that slimy top are sighing souls, who make these waters bubble at the surface. Your eyes will tell you this, just look around. Bogged in this slime, they say, sluggish we were in the sweet air, made happy by the sun, and the smoke of sloth was smoldering in our hearts. Now we lie sluggish here in this black muck. This is the hymn they gurgle in their throats, but cannot sing in words that truly sound." Then making a wide arc, we walked around the pond between the dry bank and the slime, our eyes still fixed on those who gobbled mud. We came in time to the foot of a high tower. Canto 8. I must explain, however, that before we finally reached the foot of that high tower, our eyes had been attracted to its summit by two small flames we saw flare up just there, and so far off the eye could hardly see. Another burning torch flashed back a sign. I turned to that vast sea of human knowledge. What signal is this? And the other flame, what does it answer? And who's doing this? And he replied, "You should already see, across the filthy waves, what has been summoned, unless the marsh's vapors hide it from you. A bowstring never shot off an arrow that cut the thin air any faster than a little boat I saw that very second, skimming along the water in our direction, with a solitary steersman who was shouting, 'Aha! I've got you now, you wretched soul!' 'Phlegyas, Phlegyas, this time you shout in vain,' my lord responded. 'You will have us with you no longer than it takes to cross the muck.' As one who learns of some incredible trick just played on him flares up resentfully, so Phlegyas there was seething in his anger. My leader calmly stepped into the skiff, and when he was inside, he had me enter, and only then it seemed to carry weight. Soon as my guide and I were in the boat, the ancient prow began to plow the water, more deeply now than any time before. And as we sailed the course of this dead channel, before me there rose up a slimy shape that said, 'Who are you who come before your time?' And I spoke back, 'Though I come, I do not stay, but who are you in all your ugliness?' 'You see that I am one who weeps,' he answered. And then I said to him, 'May you weep and wail, stuck here in this place forever, you damned soul, for, filthy as you are, I recognize you.' With that, he stretched both hands out toward the boat, but on his guard, my teacher pushed him back. 'Away, get down there with the other curs.' And then he put his arms around my neck and kissed my face and said, 'Indignant soul, blessed is she in whose womb you were conceived. In the world this man was filled with arrogance, and nothing good about him decks his memory. For this, his shade is filled with fury here. Many in life esteem themselves great men, who then will wallow here like pigs in mud, leaving behind them their repulsive fame. Master, it would certainly make me happy to see him dunk deep in this slop just once before we leave this lake. It truly would. And he to me, before the other shore comes into sight, you will be satisfied. A wish like that is worthy of fulfillment. Soon afterwards, I saw the wretch so mangled by a gang of muddy souls that, to this day, I thank my Lord and praise him for that sight. "Get Filippo Argenti!" they all cried, and at those shouts the Florentine, gone mad, turned on himself and bit his body fiercely. We left him there. I'll say no more about him. A wailing noise began to pound my ears, and made me strain my eyes to see ahead. "And now, my son," the gentle teacher said, "coming closer is the city we call Dis, with its great walls and its fierce citizens." And I, "Master, already I can see the clear glow of its mosques above the valley, burning bright red, as though just forged and left to smolder." And he to me, "Eternal fire burns within, giving off the reddish glow you see diffused throughout this lower hell." And then at last we entered those deep moats that circled all of this unhappy city, whose walls, it seemed to me, were made of iron. For quite a while we sailed around until we reached a place and heard our boatsman shout with all his might, "Get out! Here is the entrance!" I saw more than 1,000 fiendish angels perching above the gates enraged, screaming, "Who is the one approaching? Who, without death, dares walk into the kingdom of the dead?" And my wise teacher made some kind of signal, announcing he would speak to them in secret. They managed to suppress their great resentment enough to say, "You come, but he must go who thought to walk so boldly through this realm. Let him retrace his foolish way alone. Just let him try. And you who led him here, through this dark land, you'll stay right where you are." And now, my reader, consider how I felt when those foreboding words came to my ears. I thought I'd never see our world again. Oh, my dear guide, who more than 7 times restored my confidence and rescued me from the many dangers that blocked my going on, don't leave me, please, I cried in my distress, and if the journey onward is denied us, let's turn our footsteps back together quickly. Then that lord who had brought me all this way said, "Do not fear, the journey we are making none can prevent, such power did decree it. Wait here for me and feed your weary spirit with comfort and good hope. You can be sure I will not leave you in this underworld." With this he walks away, he leaves me here, that gentle father, and I stay, doubting and battling with my thoughts of yes, but no. I could not hear what he proposed to them, but they did not remain with him for long. I saw them race each other back for home. Our adversaries slammed the heavy gates in my lord's face, and he stood there outside, then turned toward me and walked back very slowly, with eyes downcast, all self-assurance now erased from his forehead, sighing. "Who are these to forbid my entrance to the halls of grief?" He spoke to me. "You need not be disturbed by my vexation, for I shall win the contest, no matter how they plot to keep us out. This insolence of theirs is nothing new. They used it once at a less secret gate, which is, and will forever be, unlocked. You saw the deadly words inscribed above it, and now, already past it, and descending, across the circles, down the slope, alone, comes one by whom the city will be opened." Canto 9. The color of the coward on my face, when I realized my guide was turning back, made him quickly change the color of his own. He stood alert, like one who strains to hear. His eyes could not see far enough ahead to cut the heavy fog of that black air. "But surely we were meant to win this fight," he said, "or else, but no, such help was promised. Oh, how much time it's taking him to come." I saw too how quickly he amended his opening words with what he added on. They were different from the ones he first pronounced, but nonetheless his words made me afraid. Perhaps because the phrase he left unfinished, I finished with worse meaning than he meant. "Has anyone before ever descended to this sad hollow's depths from that first circle, whose pain is all in having hope cut off?" I put this question to him. He replied,
It is not usual for one of us to make the journey I am making now, but it happens I was down here once before, conjured by that heartless witch Ericto, who could recall the spirit to its body. Soon after I had left my flesh in death, she sent me through these walls and down as far as the pit of Judas to bring a spirit out. And that place is the lowest and the darkest, and the farthest from the sphere that circles all. I know the road, and well, you can be sure. This swamp that breathes with a prodigious stink lies in a circle round the doleful city that now we cannot enter without strife. And he said other things, but I forget them, for suddenly my eyes were drawn above, up to the fiery top of that high tower, where in no time at all, and all at once, sprang up three hellish furies stained with blood, their bodies and their gestures those of females. Their waists were bound in cords of wild green hydras, horned snakes and little serpents grew as hair, and twined themselves around the savage temples. And he who had occasion to know well the handmaids of the queen of timeless woe, cried out to me, "Look there, the fierce Erinyes! That is Magira, the one there to the left, and that one raving on the right, Alecto, Tisiphone in the middle." He said no more. With flailing palms the three would beat their breasts, then tear them with their nails, shrieking so loud. I drew close to the poet, confused with fear. "Medusa, come, we'll turn him into stone," they shouted all together, glaring down. "How wrong we were to let off Theseus lightly. Now turn your back and cover up your eyes, for if the Gorgon comes and you should see her, there would be no returning to the world." These were my master's words. He turned me round, and did not trust my hands to hide my eyes, but placed his own on mine and kept them covered. "O all of you whose intellects are sound, look now and see the meaning that is hidden beneath the veil that covers my strange verses." And then, above the filthy swell, approaching, a blast of sound, shot through with fear, exploded, making both shores of hell begin to tremble. It sounded like one of those violent winds, born from the clash of counter-temperatures that tear through forests, raging on unchecked. It splits and rips and carries off the branches, and proudly whips the dust up in its path, and makes the beasts and shepherds flee its course. He freed my eyes, and said, "Now turn around, and set your sight along the ancient scum, there where the marshes mists is hovering thickest. As frogs before their enemy, the snake, all scatter through the pond and then dive down, until each one is squatting on the bottom, so I saw more than 1,000 fear-shocked souls in flight, clearing the path of one who came walking the Styx, his feet dry on the water. From time to time, with his left hand, he fanned his face to push the putrid air away, as this was all that seemed to weary him. I was certain now that he was sent from heaven. I turned to my guide, but he made a sign to keep my silence and bow low to this one. Ah, the scorn that filled his holy presence! He reached the gate and touched it with a wand. It opened without resistance from inside. "O heaven's outcasts, despicable souls," he started, standing on the dreadful threshold. "What insolence is this that breeds in you? Why do you stubbornly resist that will, whose end can never be denied, and which, more than one time, increased your suffering? What do you gain by locking horns with fate? If you remember well, your Cerberus still bears his chain and throat peeled clean for that." He turned then and retraced the squalid path, without one word to us, and on his face the look of one concerned and spurred by things that were not those he found surrounding him. And then we started moving toward the city, in the safety of the holy words pronounced. We entered there, and with no opposition, and I, so anxious to investigate the state of souls locked up in such a fortress, once in the place allowed my eyes to wander, and saw, in all directions spreading out, a countryside of pain and ugly anguish. As at Arles, where the Rhone turns to stagnant waters, or as at Pola near Quarnero's Gulf, that closes Italy and bathes her confines, the sepulchres made all the land uneven,
So they did there, strewn in all directions, except the graves here served a crueler purpose. For scattered everywhere among the tombs were flames that kept them glowing far more hot than any iron an artisan might use. Each tomb had its lid loose, pushed to one side, and from within came forth such fierce laments that I was sure inside were tortured souls. I asked, Master, what kind of shades are these, lying down there, buried in the graves of stone, speaking their presence in such dolorous sighs? And he replied, There lie arch-heretics of every sect with all their disciples. More than you think are packed within these tombs. Like heretics lie buried with their like, and the graves burn more or less accordingly. Then turning to the right, we moved ahead, between the torments there and those high walls. Canto 10. Now onward down a narrow path, between the city's ramparts and the suffering, my master walks, I following close behind. O lofty power, who through these impious jeers led me around as you see fit, I said, I want to know, I want to understand. The people buried there in sepulchres, can they be seen? I mean, since all the lids are off the tombs and no one stands on guard. And he, They will forever be locked up, when they return here from Jehoshaphat with the bodies that they left up in the world. The private cemetery on this side serves Epicurus and his followers, who make the soul die when the body does. As for the question you just put to me, it will be answered soon, while we are here, and the wish you are keeping from me will be granted. And I, Oh my good guide, do not hide my heart. I do not hide my heart. I'm trying not to talk too much, as you have told me more than once to do. O Tuscan, walking through our flaming city, alive and speaking with such elegance, be kind enough to stop here for a while. Your mode of speech identifies you clearly as one whose birthplace is that noble city, with which, in my time, perhaps, I was too harsh. One of the vaults resounded suddenly with these clear words, and I, intimidated, drew up a little closer to my guide, who said, What are you doing? Turn around and look at Farinata, who is risen. You will see him from the waist up, standing straight. I already had my eyes fixed on his face, and there he stood out tall, with his chest and brow proclaiming his disdain for all this hell. My guide, with a gentle push, encouraged me to move among the sepulchres toward him. Be sure you choose your words with care, he said. And when I reached the margin of his tomb, he looked at me, and half contemptuously he asked, And who would your ancestors be? And I, who wanted only to oblige him, held nothing back, but told him everything. At this he lifted up his brows a little, then said, Bitter enemies of mine they were, and of my ancestors and of my party. I had to scatter them not once, but twice. They were expelled, but only to return from everywhere, I said, not once but twice, an art at your men, however, never mastered. Just then along that same tomb's open ledge a shade appeared, but just down to his chin, beside this other. I think he got up kneeling. He looked around as though he hoped to see if someone else, perhaps, had come with me, and when his expectation was deceived, he started weeping. If it be great genius that carries you along through this blind jail, where is my son? Why is he not with you? I do not come alone, I said to him. That one waiting over there guides me through here, the one perhaps your Guido held in scorn. The place of pain assigned him, and what he asked, already had revealed his name to me, and made my pointed answer possible. Instantly he sprang to his full height and cried, What did you say? He held? Is he not living? The day's sweet light no longer strikes his eyes? And when he heard the silence of my delay, responding to his question, he collapsed into his tomb, not to be seen again. That other stately shade, at whose request I had first stopped to talk, showed no concern, nor moved his head, nor turned to see what happened. He merely picked up where we had left off. If that art they did not master, he went on, that gives me greater pain than does this bed. But the face of the queen who reigns down here will glow not more than 50 times before you learn how hard it is to master such an art. And as I hope that you may once more know the sweet world, tell me,
Why should your party be so harsh to my clan in every law they make? I answered, the massacre and butchery that stain the waters of the Arbia red now cause such laws to issue from our councils. He sighed, shaking his head. It was not I alone took the part, he said, nor certainly would I have joined the rest without good cause. But I alone stood up when all of them were ready to have Florence razed. It was I who openly stood up in her defense. And now, as I would have your seed find peace, I said, I beg you to resolve a problem that has kept my reason tangled in a knot. If I have heard correctly, all of you can see ahead to what the future holds, but your knowledge of the present is not clear. Down here, we see like those with faulty vision who only see, he said, what's at a distance. This much the sovereign Lord grants us here. When events are close to us, or when they happen, our mind is blank, and were it not for others, we would know nothing of your living state. Thus, you can understand how all our knowledge will be completely dead at that time when the door to future things is closed forever. Then I, moved by regret for what I'd done said, now, will you please tell the fallen one his son is still on earth among the living? And if, when he asked, silence was my answer, tell him, while he was speaking, all my thoughts were struggling with that point you solved for me. My teacher had begun to call me back, so I quickly asked that spirit to reveal the names of those who shared the tomb with him. He said, more than 1,000 lie with me. The second Frederick is here, and the cardinal is with us, and the rest I shall not mention. His figure disappeared. I made my way to the ancient poet, reflecting on these words, those words which were prophetic enemies. He moved, and as we went along he said, what troubles you? Why are you so distraught? And I told him all the thoughts that filled my mind. Be sure your mind retains, the sage commanded, those words you heard pronounced against yourself, and listen carefully now. He raised a finger. When at last you stand in the glow of her sweet ray, the one whose splendid eyes see everything, from her you'll learn your life's itinerary. Then to the left he turned, leaving the walls. He headed toward the center by a path that strikes into a vale, whose stench arose, disgusting as high up as we were. Canto 11. We reached the curving brink of a steep bank, constructed of enormous broken rocks. Below us was a crueler din of pain. And the disgusting overflow of stench the deep abyss was vomiting forced us back from the edge. Crouched underneath the lid of some great tomb, I saw it was inscribed. Within lies Anastasius, the Pope Photinus lured away from the straight path. Our descent will have to be delayed somewhat, so that our sense of smell may grow accustomed to these vile fumes. Then we will not mind them, my master said. And I, you will have to find some way to keep our time from being wasted. That is precisely what I had in mind, he said, and then began the lesson. My son, within these boulders' bounds are 3 more circles, concentrically arranged like those above, all tightly packed with souls, so that, later, the sight of them alone will be enough. I'll tell you how and why they are imprisoned. All malice has injustice as its end, an end achieved by violence or by fraud, while both are sins that earn the hate of heaven. Since fraud belongs exclusively to man, God hates it more, and therefore far below, the fraudulent are placed and suffer most. In the first of the circles below are the violent, since violence can be used against 3 persons. Into 3 concentric rounds it is divided. Violence can be done to God, to self, or to one's neighbor, to him or to his goods, as my reasoned explanation will make clear. By violent means, a man can kill his neighbor or wound himself grievously. His goods may suffer violence by arson, theft, and devastation. So homicides and those who strike with malice, those who destroy and plunder, are all punished in the first round, but all in different groups. Man can raise violent hands against himself and his own goods, so in the second round, paying the debt that never can be paid, are suicides, self-robbers of your world, or those who gamble all their wealth away and weep up there when they should have rejoiced. One can use violence against the deity by heartfelt disbelief and cursing him, or by despising nature and God's bounty. Therefore, the smallest round stamps with its seal both Sodom and Cahor, and all those souls who hate God in their hearts and curse his name. Fraud that gnaws the conscience of its servants can be used on one who puts his trust in you, or else on one who has no trust invested. This latter sort seems only to destroy the bonds of love that nature gives to man. So in the second circle there are nests of hypocrites, flatterers, dabblers in sorcery, falsifiers, thieves and simonists, panders, seducers, grafters, and like filth. The former kind of fraud both disregards the love nature enjoys and that extra bond between men which creates a special trust. Thus, it is in the smallest of the circles, at the earth's center, around the throne of Dis, that traitors suffer their eternal pain. And I, Master, your reasoning runs smooth, and your explanation certainly makes clear the nature of this pit and of its inmates. But what about those in the slimy swamp, those driven by the wind, those beat by rain, and those who come to blows with harsh refrains? Why are they, too, not punished here inside the city of flame, if they have earned God's wrath? If they have not, why are they suffering? And he to me, why do you let your thoughts stray from the path they are accustomed to? Or have I missed the point you have in mind? Have you forgotten how your ethics reads, those terms it explicates in such detail, the three conditions that the heavens hate, incontinence, malice, and bestiality? Do you not remember how incontinence offends God least, and merits the least blame? If you will reconsider well this doctrine, and then recall to mind who those souls were suffering pain above, outside the walls, you will clearly see why they are separated from these malicious ones, and why God's vengeance beats down upon their souls less heavily. O sun that shines to clear a misty vision, such joy is mine when you resolve my doubts, that doubting pleases me no less than knowledge. Go back a little bit once more, I said, to where you say that usury offends God's goodness, and untie that knot for me. Philosophy, he said, and more than once, points out to one who reads with understanding how nature takes her course from the divine intellect, from its artistic workmanship, and if you have your physics well in mind, you will find, not many pages from the start, how your art too, as best it can, imitates nature the way an apprentice does its master, so your art may be said to be God's grandchild. From art and nature man was meant to take his daily bread to live, if you recall the book of Genesis near the beginning. But the usurer, adopting other means, scorns nature in herself and in her pupil. Art he invests his hope in something else. Now follow me, we should be getting on. The fish are shimmering over the horizon, the wain is now exactly over Chorus, and the passage down the bank is farther on. Canto 12. Not only was that last place where we had come to descend craggy, but there was something there that made the scene appalling to the eye. Like the ruins this side of Trent left by the landslide, an earthquake or erosion must have caused it, that hit the Adige on its left bank. Then, from the mountain's top, where the slide began, to the plain below, the shattered rocks slipped down, shaping a path for a difficult descent. So was the slope of our ravine's formation. At the edge, along the shattered chasm, there lay stretched out the infamy of Crete. The sun conceived in the pretended cow. When he saw us, he bit into his flesh, gone crazy with the fever of his rage. My wise guide cried to him, "Perhaps you think you see the Duke of Athens come again, who came once in the world to bring your death. Begone, you beast, for this one is not led down here by means of clues your sister gave him. He comes here only to observe your torments." The way a bull breaks loose the very moment he knows he has been dealt the mortal blow, and cannot run but jumps and twists and turns, just so I saw the Minotaur perform, and my guide, alert, cried out, "Run to the pass, while he still writhes with rage, get started down." And so we made our way down through the ruins of rocks, which often I felt shift and tilt beneath my feet from weight they were not used to. I was deep in thought when he began.
Are you perhaps thinking about these ruins protected by the furious beasts I quenched in its own rage? Now let me tell you that the other time I came down to the lower part of hell, this rock had not fallen into ruins. But certainly, if I remember well, it was just before the coming of that one who took from hell's first circle the great spoil, that this abyss of stench from top to bottom began to shake. So I thought the universe felt love, whereby, some have maintained, the world has more than once renewed itself in chaos. That was the moment when this ancient rock was split this way, here and in other places. But now look down the valley. Coming closer, you will see the river of blood that boils the souls of those who through their violence injured others. O blind stupidity and insane wrath, spurring us on through our short life on earth to steep us then forever in such misery. I saw a river, wide, curved like a bow, that stretched embracing all the flat land there, just as my guide had told me to expect. Between the river and the steep came centaurs, galloping in single file, equipped with arrows, off hunting as they used to do in the world. Then, seeing us descend, they all stopped short, and 3 of them departed from the ranks, with bows and arrows ready from their quivers. One of them cried from his distant post, "You there, on your way down here, what torture are you seeking? Speak where you stand, if not, I draw my bow." And then my master shouted back, "Our answer we will give to Chiron when we're at his side. As for you, I see you are as rash as ever." He nudged me, saying, "That one there is Nessus, who died from loving lovely Deianira, and made of himself, and of his blood, his own revenge. The middle one, who contemplates his chest, is great Chiron, who reared and taught Achilles. The last is Pholus, known for his drunken wrath. They gallop by the thousands round this ditch, shooting at any daring soul emerging above the bloody level of his guilt." When we came closer to those agile beasts, Chiron drew an arrow, and with its notch he parted his beard to both sides of his jaws. And when he had uncovered his great mouth, he spoke to his companions. "Have you noticed how the one behind moves everything he touches? This is not what a dead man's feet would do." And my good guide, now standing by the torso at the point the beast's 2 natures joined, replied, "He is indeed alive, and so alone that I must show him through the dismal valley. He travels by necessity, not pleasure. A spirit came from singing Alleluia to give me this extraordinary mission. He is no rogue, nor I a criminal spirit. Now, in the name of that power by which I move my steps along so difficult a road, give us one of your troop to be our guide, to lead us to the ford, and once we are there, to carry this one over on his back, for he is not a spirit who can fly." Chiron looked over his right breast and said to Nessus, "You go, guide them as they ask, and if another troop persists, disperse them." So with this trusted escort we moved on, along the boiling crimson river's bank, where piercing shrieks rose from the boiling souls. There I saw people sunken to their eyelids, and the huge centaur explained, "These are the tyrants who dealt in bloodshed and plundered wealth. Their tears are paying for their heartless crimes. Here stand Alexander and fierce Dionysius, who weighed down Sicily with years of pain. And there, that forehead smeared with coal-black hair, is Azzolino, the other one, the blonde, Opizzo d'Esti, who, and this is true, was killed by his own stepson in your world." With that I looked to Virgil, but he said, "Let him instruct you now, don't look to me." A little farther on, the centaur stopped above some people peering from the blood that came up to their throats. He pointed out a shade off to one side, alone, and said, "There stands the one who, in God's keep, murdered the heart still dripping blood above the Thames." Then I saw other souls stuck in the river, who had their heads and chests above the blood, and I knew the names of many who were there. The river's blood began decreasing slowly, until it cooked the feet and nothing more. Just as and here we found the ford where we could cross. "Just as you see this boiling river here, on this side getting shallow gradually," the centaur said, "I would also have you know that on the other side the riverbed sinks deeper more and more until it reaches the deepest beating place where tyrants moan. It is there that heaven's justice strikes its blow against Attila, known as the scourge of the earth, against Pyrrhus and Sextus, and forever extracts the tears the scalding blood produces from Rinier de Corneto and Rinier Pazzo, whose battlefields were highways where they robbed. Then he turned around and crossed the ford again. Canto 13. Not yet had Nessus reached the other side when we were on our way into a forest that was not marked by any path at all. No green leaves, but rather black in color. No smooth branches, but twisted and entangled. No fruit, but thorns of poison bloomed instead. No thick, rough, scrubby home like this exists, not even between Cecina and Corneto, for those wild beasts that hate the run of farmlands. Here the repulsive harpies twine their nests, who drove the Trojans from the Strophides with their filthy forecasts of their close disaster. Wide-winged they are, with human necks and faces. Their feet are clawed, their bellies fat and feathered. Perched in trees, they shriek their strange laments. Before we go on farther, my guide began, remember, you are in the second round, and shall be till we reach the dreadful sand. Now look around you carefully, and see with your own eyes what I will not describe, for if I did, you wouldn't believe my words. Around me wails of grief were echoing, and I saw no one there to make those sounds. Bewildered by all this, I had to stop. I think perhaps he thought I might be thinking that all the voices coming from those stumps belonged to people hiding there from us. And so my teacher said, if you break off a little branch of any of these plants, what you are thinking now will break off too. Then slowly raising up my hand a bit, I snapped the tiny branch of a great thorn bush, and its trunk cried, why are you tearing me? And when its blood turned dark around the wound, it started saying more. Why do you rip me? Have you no sense of pity whatsoever? Men were we once, and now we are changed to scrub. But even if we had been souls of serpents, your hand should have shown more pity than it did. Like a green log burning at one end only, sputtering at the other, oozing sap, and hissing with the air it forces out, so from that splintered trunk a mixture poured of words and blood. I let the branch I held fall from my hand, and stood there stiff with fear. O wounded soul, my sage replied to him, if he had only let himself believe what he had read in verses I once wrote, he would never have raised his hand against you. But the truth itself was so incredible, I urged him on to do the thing that grieves me. But tell him who you were, so he can make amends, and will, by making bloom again your fame in the world above, where his return is sure. In the trunk. So appealing are your lovely words, I must reply. Be not displeased if I am lured into a little conversation. I am that one who held both of the keys that fitted Frederick's heart. I turned them both, locking and unlocking, with such finesse, that I let few into his confidence. I was so faithful to my glorious office, I lost not only sleep, but life itself. That courtesan who constantly surveyed Caesar's household with her adulterous eyes, mankind's undoing, the special vice of courts, inflamed the hearts of everyone against me. And these, inflamed in turn Augustus, and my happy honors turned to sad laments. My mind, moved by scornful satisfaction, believing death would free me from all scorn, made me unjust to me, who was all just. By these strange roots of my own tree, I swear to you that never once did I break faith with my Lord, who was so worthy of all honor. If one of you should go back to the world, restore the memory of me, who here remain cut down by the blow that envy gave. My poet paused a while, then said to me, since he is silent now, don't lose your chance. Ask him if there is more you wish to know. Why don't you keep on questioning? I asked, and ask him, for my part, what I would ask, for I cannot, such pity chokes my heart. He began again. That this man may fulfill generously what your words cry out for, imprisoned soul, may it please you to continue by telling us just how a soul gets bound into these knots, and tell us, if you know, whether any soul might someday leave his branches. And at that the trunk breathed heavily, and then the breath changed to a voice that spoke these words. Your question will be answered very briefly. The moment that the violent soul departs the body it has torn itself away from, Minos sends it down to the seventh hole. It drops to the wood, not in a place allotted, but anywhere that fortune tosses it. There, like a grain of spelt, it germinates, soon springs into a sapling, then a wild tree. At last the harpies, feasting on its leaves, create its pain, and for the pain an outlet. Like the rest, we shall return to claim our bodies, but never again to wear them. Wrong it is for a man to have again what he once cast off. We shall drag them here, and all along the mournful forest our bodies shall hang forevermore, each one on a thorn of its own alien shade. We were standing still attentive to the trunk, thinking perhaps it might have more to say, when we were startled by a rushing sound, such as the hunter hears from where he stands, first the boar, then all the chase approaching, the crash of hunting dogs and branches smashing. Then to the left of us appeared two shapes, naked and gashed, fleeing with such rough speed, they tore away with them the bush's branches. The one ahead, "Come on, come quickly, Death!" The other, who could not keep up the pace, screamed, "Lano, your legs were not so nimble when you jousted in the tournament of Topo." And then, from lack of breath perhaps, he slipped into a bush and wrapped himself in thorns. Behind these two, the wood was overrun by packs of black bitches ravenous and ready, like hunting dogs just broken from their chains. They sank their fangs in that poor wretch who hid, they ripped him open piece by piece, and then ran off with mouthfuls of his wretched limbs. Quickly my escort took me by the hand, and led me over to the bush that wept its vain laments from every bleeding sore. "O Giacomo de Sant'Andrea," it said, "what good was it for you to hide in me? What fault have I if you led an evil life?" My master, standing over it, inquired, "Who were you once that now, through many wounds, breathes a grieving sermon with your blood?" He answered us, "O souls who have just come in time to see this unjust mutilation that has separated me from all my leaves, gather them round the foot of this sad bush. I was from the city that took the Baptist in exchange for her first patron, who, for this, swears by his art she will have endless sorrow. And were it not that on the Arno's bridge some vestige of his image still remains, those citizens who built anew the city on the ashes that Attila left behind would have accomplished such a task in vain. I turned my home into a hanging place."
Canto 14. The love we both shared for our native city moved me to gather up the scattered leaves and give them back to the voice that now had faded. We reached the confines of the woods that separate the second from the third round. There I saw God's justice in its dreadful operation. Now to picture clearly these unheard of things. We arrived to face an open stretch of flat land whose soil refused the roots of any plant. The grieving forest made a wreath around it, as the sad river of blood enclosed the woods. We stopped right here, right at the borderline. This wasteland was a dry expanse of sand, a thick burning sand no different from the kind that Cato's feet packed down in other times. O just revenge of God, how awesomely you should be feared by everyone who reads these truths that were revealed to my own eyes. Many separate herds of naked souls I saw, all weeping desperately. It seemed each group had been assigned a different penalty. Some souls were stretched out flat upon their backs, others were crouching there all tightly hunched, some wandered, never stopping, round and round. Far more were there of those who roamed the sand, and fewer were the souls stretched out to suffer, but their tongues were looser, for the pain was greater. And over all that sandland, a fall of slowly raining broad flakes of fire showered steadily, a mountain snowstorm on a windless day. Like those that Alexander saw descending on his troops while crossing India's torrent lands, flames falling, floating solid to the ground, and he with all his men began to tread the sand so that the burning flames might be extinguished one by one before they joined. Here, too, a never-ending blaze descended, kindling the sand like tinder under flint sparks, and in this way the torment there was doubled.
Without a moment's rest, the rhythmic dance of wretched hands went on, this side, that side, brushing away the freshly fallen flames. And I, my master, you who overcome all opposition, except for those tough demons who came to meet us at the gate of Dis, who is that mighty one who seems unbothered by burning, stretched sullen and disdainful there, looking as if the rainfall could not tame him? And that very one who was quick to notice me, inquiring of my guide about him, answered, "What I was once alive, I still am dead. Let Jupiter wear out his smith, from whom he seized in anger that sharp thunderbolt he hurled to strike me down my final day. Let him wear out those others one by one, who work the soot-black forge of Mongibello, as he shouts, 'Help me, good Vulcan, I need your help,' the way he cried that time at Phlegra's battle. And with all his force let him hurl his bolts at me, no joy of satisfaction would I give him." My guide spoke back at him with cutting force. I never heard his voice so strong before. "O Capaneus, since your blustering pride will not be stilled, you are made to suffer more. No torment other than your rage itself could punish your gnawing pride more perfectly." And then he turned a calmer face to me, saying, "That was a king, one of the 7 besieging Thebes, who scorned, and would still seem still to go on scorning God and treat him lightly. But as I said to him, he decks his chest with ornaments of lavish words that prick him. Now follow me, and also pay attention, but not to put your feet upon the burning sand, but to keep them well within the wooded line." Without exchanging words, we reached a place where a narrow stream came rushing from the woods. Its reddish water still runs fear through me, like the one that issues from the Bulachame, whose waters are shared by prostitutes downstream. It wore its way across the desert sand. This river's bed and banks were made of stone, so were the tops on both its sides, and then I understood this was our way across. Among the other marvels I have shown you, from the time we made our entrance through the great gate, whose threshold welcomes every evil soul, your eyes have not discovered anything as remarkable as this stream you see here extinguishing the flames above its path. These were my master's words, and I at once implored him to provide me with the food for which he had given me the appetite. "In the middle of the sea there lies a wasteland," he immediately began, "that is known as Crete, under whose king the world knew innocence. There is a mountain there that was called Ida, then happy in its vineyard and its streams, now deserted like an old discarded thing. Rhea chose it once as a safe cradle for her son, and to conceal his presence better, she had her servant scream aloud when he cried. In the mountain's core an ancient man stands tall, and he has his shoulders turned toward Damietta and faces Rome as though it were his mirror. His head is fashioned of the finest gold, pure silver are his arms and hands and chest. From there to where his legs spread he is brass. The rest of him is all of chosen iron, except his right foot, which is terracotta. He puts more weight on this foot than on the other. Every part of him, except the gold, is broken by a fissure dripping tears down to his feet, where they collect to erode the cavern's rock. From stone to stone they drain down here, becoming rivers, the Acheron, Styx, and Phlegethon, then overflow down through this tight canal until they fall to where all falling ends. They form Cocytus. What that pool is like I need not tell you. You will see yourself." And I to him, "If this small stream beside us has its source, as you have told me, in our world, why have we seen it only on this ledge?" And he to me, "You know this place is round, and though your journey has been long, circling toward the bottom, turning only to the left, you still have not completed a full circle, so you should never look surprised, as now, if you see something you have not seen before." And I again, "Where, master, shall we find Lethe and Phlegethon? You omit the first and say the other forms from the rain of tears." "I am very happy when you question me," he said, "but that the blood-red water boiled should certainly answer one of your questions. And Lethe you shall see, but beyond this valley, at a place where souls collect to wash themselves, when penitence has freed them of their guilt. Now it is time to leave this edge of woods," he added,
Be sure you follow close behind me. The margins are our road. They do not burn, and all the flames above them are extinguished. Canto 15. Now one of those stone margins bears us on, and the river's vapors hover like a shade, sheltering the banks and the water from the flames. As the Flemings, living with the constant threat of flood tides rushing in between Vicent and Bruges, build their dikes to force the sea back, as the Paduans build theirs on the shores of Brenta to protect their town and homes before warm weather turns Chiarentana's snow to rushing water. So were these walls we walked upon constructed, though the engineer, whoever he may have been, did not make them as high or thick as those. We had left the wood behind, so far behind by now that if I had stopped to turn around, I am sure it could no longer have been seen. When we saw a troop of souls come hurrying toward us beside the bank, and each of them looked us up and down, as some men look at other men at night when the moon is new. They strained their eyebrows, squinting hard at us, as an old tailor might at his needle's eye. Eyed in such a way by this strange crew, I was recognized by one of them, who grabbed my garment's hem and shouted, "How marvelous!" And I, when he reached out his arm toward me, straining my eyes, saw through his face's crust, through his burned features that could not prevent my memory from bringing back his name. And bending my face down to meet with his, I said, "Is this really you here, Ser Brunetto?" And he, "Oh, my son, may it not displease you if Brunetto Latini lets his troop file on while he walks at your side for a little while." And I, "With all my heart I beg you to, and if you wish me to sit here with you, I will, if my companion does not mind." "My son," he said, "a member of this herd who stops one moment lies 100 years unable to brush off the wounding flames. So move on. I shall follow at your hem and then rejoin my family that moves along, lamenting their eternal pain." I did not dare step off the margin path to walk at his own level, but, with head bent low in reverence, I moved along. He began. "What fortune or what destiny leads you down here before your final hour, and who is this one showing you the way?" "Up there above, in the bright living life, before I reached the end of all my years, I lost myself in a valley," I replied. "Just yesterday at dawn I turned from it. This spirit here appeared as I turned back, and by this road he guides me home again." He said to me, "Follow your constellation, and you cannot fail to reach your port of glory, not if I saw clearly in the happy life. And if I had not died just when I did, I would have cheered you on in all your work, seeing how favorable heaven was to you. But that ungrateful and malignant race, which descended from the Fiesole of old, and still have rock and mountain in their blood, will become, for your good deeds, your enemy. And right they are. Among the bitter berries there's no fit place for the sweet fig to bloom. They have always had the fame of being blind, an envious race, proud and avaricious. You must not let their ways contaminate you. Your destiny reserves such honors for you. Both parties shall be hungry to devour you, but the grass will not be growing where the goat is. Let the wild beasts of Fiesole make fodder of each other, and let them leave the plant untouched, so rare it is that one grows in their dung heap, in which their lives again the holy seed of those remaining Romans who survived there when this new nest of malice was constructed. "Oh, if all I wished for had been granted," I answered him, "you certainly would not yet, be banished from our life on earth. My mind is etched, and now my heart is pierced, with your kind image, loving and paternal, when, living in the world, hour after hour, you taught me how man makes himself eternal. And while I live, my tongue shall always speak of my debt to you, and of my gratitude. I will write down what you tell me of my future, and save it with another text to show a lady who can interpret if I can reach her. This much, at least, let me make clear to you. If my conscience continues not to blame me, I am ready for whatever fortune wants. This prophecy is not new to my ears, so let fortune turn her wheel, spinning it as she pleases, and the peasant turn his spade." My master, hearing this, looked to the right. Then, turning round and facing me, he said, "He listens well who notes well what he hears." But I did not answer him. I went on talking, walking with Ser Brunetto, asking him who of his company were most distinguished. And he, "It might be good to know who some are. About the rest I feel I should be silent, for the time would be too short, there are so many. In brief, let me tell you, all here were clerics and respected men of letters of great time, all befouled the world by one same sin. Priscian is travelling with that wretched crowd, and Francesco da Corso too. And there also, if you could have stomached such repugnancy, you might have seen the one, the servant of servants, transferred to the Bacchiglione from the Arno, where his sinfully erected nerves were buried. I would say more, but my walk and my conversation with you cannot go on, for over there I see a new smoke rising from the sand. People approach with whom I must not mingle. Remember my tresor, where I live on. This is the only thing I ask of you." Then he turned back, and he seemed like one of those who run Verona's race across its fields to win the green cloth prize, and he was like the winner of the group, not the last one in. Canto 16. Already we were where I could hear the rumbling of the water plunging down to the next circle, something like the sound of beehives humming, when three shades with one impulse broke away running from a group of spirits passing us beneath the rain of bitter suffering. They were coming toward us shouting with one voice, "Oh, you there, stop! From the clothes you wear, you seem to be a man from our perverted city." Ah, the wounds I saw covering their limbs, some old, some freshly branded by the flames. Even now, when I think back to them, I grieve. Their shouts caught the attention of my guide, and then he turned to face me, saying, "Wait, for these are shades that merit your respect. And were it not the nature of this place to reign with piercing flames, I would suggest you run toward them, for it would be more fitting." When we stopped, they resumed their normal pace, and when they reached us, then they started circling. The three together formed a turning wheel. Just like professional wrestlers stripped and oiled, eyeing one another for the first, best grip before the actual blows and thrusts begin. And circling in this way, each kept his face pointed up at me, so that their necks and feet moved constantly in opposite directions. "And if the misery along these sterile sands," one of them said, "and our charred and peeling flesh make us, and what we ask, repulsive to you, let our great worldly fame persuade your heart to tell us who you are, how you can walk safely with living feet through hell itself. This one in front, whose footsteps I am treading, even though he runs his round naked and skinned, was of noble station, more than you may think. He was the grandson of the good Gualdrada. His name was Guido Guerra, and in his life he accomplished much with counsel and with sword. This other one, who pounds the sand behind me, is Tegiaio Aldobrandi, whose wise voice the world would have done well to listen to. And I, who share this post of pain with them, was Jacopo Rusticucci, and for sure my reluctant wife first drove me to my sin. If I could have been sheltered from the fire, I would have thrown myself below with them, and I think my guide would have allowed me to. But, as I knew I would be burned and seared, my fear won over my first good intention that made me want to put my arms around them. And then I spoke. "Repulsion? No, but grief for your condition spread throughout my heart, and years will pass before it fades away. As soon as my lord here began to speak in terms that led me to believe a group of such men as yourselves might be approaching, I am from your city, and your honored names and your accomplishments I have always heard rehearsed, and have rehearsed myself with fondness. I leave the bitter gall and journey toward those sweet fruits promised me by my true guide, but I first must go down to the very center. So may your soul remain to guide your body for years to come," that same one spoke again, "and your fame's light shine after you are gone. Tell us if courtesy and valor dwell within our city as they used to do, or have they both been banished from the place? Guglielmo Borsiere, who joined our painful ranks of late and travels there with our companions, has given us reports that make us grieve." A new breed of people with their sudden wealth have stimulated pride and unrestraint in you, O Florence, made to weep so soon. These words I shouted with my head strained high, and the three below took this to be my answer, and looked, as if on truth, at one another. If you always answer questions with such ease, they all spoke up at once, O happy you to have this gift of ready open speech. Therefore, if you survive these unlit regions, and return to gaze upon the lovely stars, when it pleases you to say, I was down there, do not fail to speak of us to living men. They broke their man-made wheel and ran away. Their nimble legs were more like wings in flight. Amen could not have been pronounced as quick as they were off and vanished from our sight, and then my teacher thought it time to leave. I followed him, and we had not gone far before the sound of water was so close that if we spoke we hardly heard each other. As that river on the Apennines' left slope, first springing from its source at Monteveso, then flowing eastward holding its own course, called Acquacheta at its start above, before descending to its lower bed where, at Forli, it has another name, reverberates there near San Benedetto dell'Alpe, plunging in a single bound, where at least 1,000 vassals could be housed. So down a single rocky precipice we found the tainted waters falling, roaring sound loud enough to deafen us in seconds. I wore a cord that fastened round my waist, with which I once had thought I might be able to catch the leopard with the gaudy skin. As soon as I removed it from my body, just as my guide commanded me to do, I gave it to him looped into a coil. Then, taking it and turning to the right, he flung it quite a distance past the bank and down into the deepness of the pit. Now surely something strange is going to happen, I thought to myself, to answer the strange signal whose course my master follows with his eyes. How cautious a man must be in company with one who can not only see his actions, but read his mind and understand his thoughts. He spoke. Soon will rise up what I expect, and what you are trying to imagine now soon must reveal itself before your eyes. It is always better to hold one's tongue than speak a truth that seems a bold-faced lie when uttered, since to tell this truth could be embarrassing. But I shall not keep quiet, and by my verses of the comedy, so may they be received with lasting favor, reader. I swear to you, I saw a figure coming. It was swimming through the thick and murky air, up to the top, a thing to startle even stalwart hearts, like one returning who has swum below to free the anchor that has caught its hooks on a reef or something else the sea conceals, spreading out his arms and doubling up his legs. Canto 17. And now behold the beast with pointed tail that passes mountains, annulling walls and weapons. Behold the one that makes the whole world stink. These were the words I heard my master say as he signaled for the beast to come ashore, up close to where the rocky levee ends. And that repulsive spectacle of fraud floated close, maneuvering head and chest onto the shore, but his tail he let hang free. His face was the face of any honest man. It shone with such a look of benediction, and all the rest of him was serpentine. His 2 clawed paws were hairy to the armpits. His back and all his belly and both flanks were painted arabesques and curlicues. The Turks and Tartars never made a fabric with richer colors intricately woven, nor were such complex webs spun by Arachne. As sometimes fishing boats are seen ashore, part fixed in sand and part still in the water, and as the beaver, living in the land of drunken Germans, squats to catch his prey, just so that beast, the worst of beasts, hung waiting on the bank that bounds the stretch of sand and stone. In the void beyond he exercised his tail, twitching and twisting up the venomed fork that armed its tip just like a scorpion's stinger. My leader said, Now we must turn aside a little from our path in the direction of that malignant beast that lies in wait. Then we stepped off our path down to the right, and moved 10 paces straight across the brink to keep the sand and flames at a safe distance. And when we stood by Gerion's side, I noticed, a little farther on, some people crouched in the sand quite close to the edge of emptiness.
Just then my master spoke. "So you may have a knowledge of this round that is complete," he said. "Go and see their torment for yourself. But let your conversation there be brief. While you are gone I shall speak to this one and ask him for the loan of his strong back." So I continued walking, all alone, along the seventh circle's outer edge, to where the group of sufferers were sitting. The pain was bursting from their eyes, their hands went scurrying up and down to give protection, here from flames, there from the burning sands. They were in fact like a dog in summer-time, busy, now with his paw, now with his snout, tormented by the fleas and flies that bite him. I carefully examined several faces among this group caught in the raining flames, and did not know a soul, but I observed that around each sinner's neck a pouch was hung, each of a different color with a coat of arms, and fixed on these they seemed to feast their eyes. And while I looked about among the crowd, I saw something in blue on a yellow purse that had the face and bearing of a lion. And while my eyes continued their inspection, I saw another purse as red as blood, exhibiting a goose more white than butter. And one who had a blue sow, pregnant-looking, stamped on the whiteness of his money-bag, asked me, "What are you doing in this pit? Get out of here, and since you're still alive, I'll tell you that my neighbor Vitaliano will come to take his seat at my left side. Among these Florentines I sit, one Paduan. Time after time they fill my ears with blasts of shouting, 'Send us down the sovereign knight, who will come bearing 3 goats on his pouch.'" His final comment he stuck out his tongue, as far out as an ox licking its nose. And I, afraid my staying there much longer might anger the one who warned me to be brief, turned my back on these frustrated sinners. I found my guide already sitting high upon the back of that fierce animal. He said, "And now, take courage and be strong. From now on we descend by stairs like these. Get on up front. I want to ride behind, to be between you and the dangerous tail." A man who feels the shivers of a fever coming on, his nails already dead of color, will tremble at the mere sight of cool shade. I was that man when I heard his words, but then I felt those stabs of shame that make a servant brave before his valorous master. As I squirmed around on those enormous shoulders, I wanted to cry out, "Hold on to me," but I had no voice to second my desire. Then he who once before had helped me out when I was threatened put his arms around me as soon as I was settled, and held me tight. And then he cried, "Now, Geryon, start moving. Descend with gentle motion, circling wide. Remember that you are carrying living weight." Just as a boat slips back away from shore, back slowly, more and more, he left that pier, and when he felt himself all clear in space, to where his breast had been he swung his tail, and stretched it undulating like an eel, as with his paws he gathered in the air. I doubt if Phaeton feared more that time he dropped the sun-reins of his father's chariot and burned the streak of sky we see today, or if poor Icarus did, feeling his sides unfeathering as the wax began to melt, his father shouting, "Wrong, your course is wrong," than I had when I felt myself in air and saw on every side nothing but air, only the beast I sat upon was there. He moves along slowly, and swimming slowly, descends a spiral path, but I know this only from a breeze ahead and one below. I hear now on my right the whirlpool roar with hideous sound beneath us on the ground. At this I stretch my neck to look below. But leaning out soon made me more afraid, for I heard moaning there and saw the flames. Trembling, I cowered back, tightening my legs. And I saw then what I had not before, the spiral path of our descent to torment closing in on us, it seemed, from every side. As the falcon, on the wing for many hours, having found no prey and having seen no signal, so that his falconer cries, "Oh, he falls already," descends, worn out, circling 100 times instead of swooping down, settling at some distance from his master, perched in anger and disdain. So Geryon brought us down to the bottom, at the foot of the jagged cliff, almost against it, and once he got our bodies off his back, he shot off like a shaft shot from a bowstring. Canto 18. There is a place in hell called Malebolge, cut out of stone the color of iron ore, just like the circling cliff that walls it in. Right at the center of this evil plain, there yawns a very wide, deep well, whose structure I will talk of when the place itself is reached. That belt of land remaining, then, runs round between the well and cliff, and all this space is divided into 10 descending valleys, just like a ground plan for successive moats that in concentric circles bind their center and serve to protect the ramparts of the castle. This was the surface image they presented, and as bridges from a castle's portal stretch from moat to reach the farthest bank, so from the great cliff's base jut spokes of rock, crossing from bank to bank, intersecting ditches until the pit's hub cuts them off from meeting. This is the place in which we found ourselves, once shaken from the back of Geryon. The poet turned to the left, I walked behind him. There on our right, I saw new suffering souls, new means of torture, and new torturers, crammed into the depths of the first ditch. 2 files of naked souls walked on the bottom. The ones on our side faced us as they passed, the others moved as we did, but more quickly. The Romans, too, in the year of the Jubilee, took measures to accommodate the throngs that had to come and go across their bridge. They fixed it so on one side all were looking at the castle and were walking to St. Peter's, on the other they were moving toward the mount. On both sides, up along the deadly rock, I saw horned devils with enormous whips lashing the backs of shades with cruel delight. Ah, how they made them skip and lift their heels at the very first crack of the whip. Not one of them dared pause to take a second or a third. As I walked on, my eyes met with the glance of one down there. I murmured to myself, I know this face from somewhere, I am sure. And so I stopped to study him more closely. My leader also stopped, and was so kind as to allow me to retrace my steps, and that whipped soul thought he would hide from me by lowering his face, which did no good. I said, Oh, you there, with your head bent low, if the features of your shade do not deceive me, you are Venedicio Caccianemico, I'm sure. How did you get yourself in such a pickle? I'm not so keen on answering, he said, but I feel I must. Your plain talk is compelling. It makes me think of old times in the world. I was the one who coaxed Gisolabella to serve the lusty wishes of the Marquis, no matter how the sordid tale is told. I'm not the only Bolognese who weeps here. Hardly. This place is packed with us. In fact, there are more of us here than there are living tongues between Savena and Reno saying Sipa. I call on your own memory as witness. Remember, we have avaricious hearts. Just at that point, a devil let him have the feel of his tailed whip and cried, Move on, you pimp! You can't cash in on women here! I turned and hurried to rejoin my guide. We walked a few more steps, and then we reached the rocky bridge that juts out from the bank. We had no difficulty climbing up and turning right along the jagged ridge. We left those shades to their eternal circlings. When we were where the ditch yawned wide below the ridge to make a passage for the scourged, my guide said, Stop and stand where you can see these other misbegotten souls, whose faces you could not see before, for they were moving in the same direction we were over there. So from the ancient bridge we viewed the train that hurried toward us along the other tract, kept moving like the first by stinging whips. And the good master, without my asking him, said, Look at that imposing one approaching, who does not shed a single tear of pain. What majesty he still maintains down there. He is Jason, who by courage and sharp wits fleeced the Colchians of their golden ram. He later journeyed through the Isle of Limnos, whose bold and heartless females earlier had slaughtered every male upon the island. There, with his words of love and loving looks, he succeeded in deceiving young Hypsipyle, who had in turn deceived the other women. He left her there with child and all alone. Such sin condemns him to such punishment, and Medea too gets her revenge on him. With him go all deceivers of this type, and let this be enough to know concerning the first valley and the souls locked in its jaws. We were already where the narrow ridge begins to cross the second bank, and to make it an abutment for another ditch's arc. Now we could hear the shades in the next pouch whimpering, making snorting, grunting sounds, and sounds of blows slapping with open palms. From a steaming stench below, the banks were coated with a slimy mold that stuck to them like glue, disgusting to behold and worse to smell. The bottom was so hollowed out of sight, we saw it only when we climbed the arc and looked down from the bridge's highest point. There we were, and from where I stood I saw souls in the ditch plunged into excrement that might well have been flushed from our latrines. My eyes were searching hard along the bottom, and I saw somebody's head so smirched with shit you could not tell if he were priest or layman. He shouted up, "Why do you feast your eyes on me more than these other dirty beasts?" And I replied, "Because, remembering well, I've seen you with your hair dry once or twice. You are Alessio Intermine from Lucca. That's why I stare at you more than the rest." He beat his slimy forehead as he answered, "I am stuck down here by all those flatteries that rolled unceasing off my tongue up there." He finished speaking, and my guide began, "Lean out a little more. Look hard down there so you can get a good look at the face of that repulsive and disheveled tramp scratching herself with shitty fingernails, spreading her legs while squatting up and down. It is Thais the whore, who gave this answer to her lover when he asked, 'Am I very worthy of your thanks?' Very, nay, incredibly so. I think our eyes have had their fill of this." Canto 19. O Simon Magus, O scum that followed him, those things of God that rightly should be wed to holiness, you, rapacious creatures, for the price of gold and silver, prostitute. Now in your honor I must sound my trumpet, for here in the third pouch is where you dwell. We had already climbed to see this tomb, and were standing high above it on the bridge, exactly at the midpoint of the ditch. O highest wisdom, how you demonstrate your art in heaven, on earth, and here in hell! How justly does your power make awards! I saw along the sides and on the bottom the livid-colored rock all full of holes. All were the same in size, each one was round. To me, they seemed no wider and no deeper than those inside my lovely San Giovanni, in which the priest would stand or baptize from, and one of these, not many years ago, I smashed for someone who was drowning in it. Let this be mankind's picture of the truth. From the mouth of every hole were sticking out a single sinner's feet, and then the legs up to the calf. The rest was stuffed inside. The soles of every sinner's feet were flaming. Their naked legs were twitching frenziedly. They would have broken any chain or rope. Just as a flame will only move along an object's oily outer peel, so here the fire slid from heel to toe and back. "Who is that one, master? That angry wretch who is writhing more than any of his comrades?" I asked. "The one licked by a redder flame." And he to me, "If you want to be carried down along that lower bank to where he is, you can ask him who he is and why he is here." And I, "My pleasure is what pleases you. You are my lord. If you know that from your will, you know that from your will I would not swerve. You even know my thoughts." When we reached the fourth bank, we began to turn, and, keeping to the left, made our way down to the bottom of the holed and narrow ditch. The good guide did not drop me from his side until he brought me to the broken rock of that one who was fretting with his shanks. "Whatever you are, holding your upside down, O wretched soul, stuck like a stake in the ground, make a sound or something," I said, "if you can." I stood there like a priest who is confessing some vile assassin who, fixed in his ditch, has called him back again to put off dying. He cried, "Is that you here already upright? Is that you here already upright, Boniface? By many years the book has lied to me. Are you fed up so soon with all that wealth for which you did not fear to take my guile, the lovely lady, then tear her asunder?" I stood there like a person just made fun of, dumbfounded by a question for an answer, not knowing how to answer the reply. Then Virgil said, "Quick, hurry up and tell him. I'm not the one you think." And I answered just the way he told me to.
The spirit heard and twisted both his feet. Then, sighing, with a grieving, tearful voice, he said, "Well then, what do you want of me? If it concerns you to learn my name, that for this reason you came back down the bank, know that I once was dressed in the great mantle. But actually I was the she-bear's son, so greedy to advance my cubs, that wealth I pocketed in life, and here myself. Beneath my head are pushed down all the others who came sinning in simony before me, squeezed tightly in the fissures of the rock. I, in my turn, shall join the rest below as soon as he comes, the one I thought you were, when, all too quick, I put my question to you. But already my feet have baked a longer time, and I have been stuck upside down like this, than he will stay here planted with feet aflame. Soon after him shall come one from the west, a lawless shepherd, one whose fouler deeds make him a fitting cover for us both. He shall be another Jason, like the one in Maccabees. Just as his king was pliant, so France's king shall soften to this priest. I do not know, perhaps I was too bold here, but I answered him in tune with his own words. Well, tell me now, what was the sum of money that holy Peter had to pay our Lord before he gave the keys into his keeping? Certainly he asked no more than, "Follow me." Nor did Peter or the rest extort gold coins or silver from Matthias when he was picked to fill the place the evil one had lost. So stay stuck there, for you are rightly punished, and guard with care the money wrongly gained that made you stand courageous against Charles. And were it not for the reverence I have for those highest of all keys that you once held in the happy life, if this did not restrain me, I would use even harsher words than these, for your avarice brings grief upon the world, crushing the good, exalting the depraved. You shepherds it was the evangelist had in mind when the vision came to him of her who sits upon the waters playing whore with kings. That one who with the 7 heads was born and from her 10 horns managed to draw strength so long as virtue was her bridegroom's joy. You have built yourselves a god of gold and silver. How do you differ from the idolater? Except he worships one, you worship hundreds. O Constantine, what evil did you sire, not by your conversion, but by the dower that the first wealthy father got from you? And while I sang these very notes to him, his big flat feet kicked fiercely out of anger, or perhaps it was his conscience gnawing him. I think my master liked what I was saying, for all the while he smiled and was intent on hearing the ring of truly spoken words. Then he took hold of me with both his arms, and when he had me firm against his breast, he climbed back up the path he had come down. He did not tire of the weight clasped tight to him, but brought me to the top of the bridge's arch, the one that joins the 4th bank to the 5th. And here he gently set his burden down, gently, for the ridge, so steep and rugged, would have been hard even for goats to cross. From there another valley opened to me. Canto 20. Now I must turn strange torments into verse to form the matter of the 20th canto of the first chant, the one about the damned. Already I was where I could look down into the depths of the ditch. I saw its floor was wet with anguished tears shed by the sinners. And I saw people in the valley's circle, silent, weeping, walking at a litany pace the way processions push along in our world. And when my gaze moved down below their faces, I saw all were incredibly distorted. The chin was not above the chest, the neck was twisted, their faces looked down on their backs. They had to move ahead by moving backward, for they never saw what was ahead of them. Perhaps there was a case of someone once in a palsy fit becoming so distorted, but none that I know of. I doubt there could be. So may God grant you, reader, benefit from reading of my poem. Just ask yourself how I could keep my eyes dry when close by I saw the image of our human form so twisted. The tears their eyes were shedding streamed down to wet their buttocks at the cleft. Indeed I did weep, and I leaned my body against a jut of rugged rock. My guide, so are you still like all the other fools? In this place piety lives when pity is dead. For who could be more wicked than that man who tries to bend divine will to his own? Lift your head up, lift it, see him for whom the earth split wide before the Thebans' eyes. while they all shouted, "Where are you rushing off to, Amphiarus? Why do you quit the war?" He kept on rushing downward through the gap until Minos, who gets them all, got him. You see how he has made his back his chest, because he wished to see too far ahead. He sees behind and walks a backward track. Behold Tiresias, who'd changed his looks. From a man he turned himself into a woman, transforming all his body part for part. Then later on he had to take the wand and strike once more those two snakes making love before he could get back his virile parts. Backing up to this one's chest comes Arun, who in the hills of Luni, worked by peasants of Carrara, dwelling in the valley's plain, lived in white marble cut into a cave, and from this site, where nothing blocked his view, he could observe the sea and stars with ease. And that one, with her hair loose, flowing back to cover both her breasts you cannot see, and with her hairy parts in front behind her, was Manto, who had searched through many lands before she came to dwell where I was born. Now let me tell you something of her story. When her father had departed from the living, and Bacchus's sacred city fell enslaved, she wandered through the world for many years. High in fair Italy there spreads a lake, beneath the mountains bounding Germany, beyond the Tyrol, known as Lake Benacco. By 1,000 streams and more, I think, the Alps are bathed from Garda to the Val Camonica, with the waters flowing down into that lake. At its center is a place where all three bishops of Trent and Brescia and Verona could, if they would ever visit there, say Mass. Peschiera sits, a handsome, well-built fortress, to ward off Brescians and the Bergamese, along the lowest point of that lake's shore, where all the water that Benacco's basin cannot hold must overflow to make a stream that winds its way through countrysides of green. But when the water starts to flow, its name is not Benacco but Mincio, all the way to Governal, where it falls into the Po. But before its course is run, it strikes a lowland, on which it spreads and turns into a marsh that can become unbearable in summer. Passing this place one day, the savage virgin saw land that lay in the center of the mire, untilled and empty of inhabitants. There, to escape all human intercourse, she stopped to practice magic with her servants. There she lived, and there she left her corpse. Later on, the men who lived around there gathered on that very spot, for it was well protected by the bog that girded it on every side. They built a city over her dead bones, and for her, the first to choose that place, they named it Mantua, without recourse to sorcery. Once, there were far more people living there, before the foolish Casolidi listened to the fraudulent advice of Pinamonti. And so I warn you, should you ever hear my city's origin told otherwise, let no false tales adulterate the truth. And I replied, Master, your explanations are truth for me, winning my faith entirely. Any others would be just like burnt-out coals. But speak to me of these shades passing by, if you see any one that is worth noting, for now my mind is set on only that. He said, That one whose beard flows from his cheeks and settles on his back and makes it dark was, when the war stripped Greece of all its males, so that the few there were still rocked in cradles, an augur who, with Colchas, called the moment to cut the first ship's cable free at Aulis. He is Eurypylus. I sang his story this way, somewhere in my high tragedy. You should know where. You know it, every line. That other one, whose thighs are scarcely fleshed, was Michael Scott, who most assuredly knew every trick of magic fraudulence. See there Guido Bonatti, Sias Denti, who wishes now he had been more devoted to making shoes, too late now for repentance. And see those wretched hags who traded in needle, spindle, shuttle for fortune-telling, and now cast their spells with image dolls and potions. Now come along. Cain with his thorn bush straddles the confines of both hemispheres already, then dips into the waves below Seville. And the moon last night already was at full, and you should well remember that at times when you were lost in the dark wood she helped you. And we were moving all the time he spoke. Canto 21. From this bridge to the next we walked and talked of things my comedy does not care to tell,
And when we reached the summit of the arch, we stopped to see the next fosse of Malebolge, and to hear more lamentation voiced in vain. I saw that it was very strangely dark. In the vast and busy shipyard of the Venetians there boils all winter long a tough, thick pitch that is used to caulk the ribs of unsound ships. Since winter will not let them sail, they toil. Some build new ships, others repair the old ones, plugging the planks come loose from many sailings. Some hammer at the bow, some at the stern. One carves the oars while others twine the ropes. One mends the jib, one patches up the mainsail. Here, too, but heated by God's art, not fire, a sticky tar was boiling in the ditch that smeared the banks with viscous residue. I saw it there, but I saw nothing in it, except the rising of the boiling bubbles, breathing in air to burst and sink again. I stood intently gazing there below, my guide shouting to me, "Watch out! Watch out!" He took hold of me and drew me to his side. I turned my head like one who can't resist, looking to see what makes him run away, his body's strength draining with sudden fear. But looking back does not delay his flight, and I saw coming right behind our backs, rushing along the ridge, a devil, black. His face, his look, how frightening it was. With outstretched wings he skimmed along the rock, and every single move he made was cruel. On one of his high-hunched and pointed shoulders he had a sinner slung by both his thighs, held tightly clawed at the tendons of his heels. He shouted from our bridge, "Hey, Malebranche, here's one of Santa Zita's elders for you. You'll stick him under. I'll go back for more. I've got that city stocked with the likes of him. They're all a bunch of grafters, save Bonturo. You can change a no to yes for cash in Lucca." He flung him in, then from the flinty cliff sprang off. No hound unleashed to chase a thief could have taken off with greater speed than he. That sinner plunged, then floated up stretched out, and the devils underneath the bridge all shouted, "You shouldn't imitate the holy face. The swimming's different here from in the Serchio. We have our grappling hooks along with us. Don't show yourself above the pitch, or else." With 100 prongs or more they pricked him, shrieking, "You've got to do your squirming under cover. Try learning how to cheat beneath the surface." They were like cooks who make their scullery boys poke down into the cauldron with their forks to keep the meat from floating to the top. My master said, "We'd best not let them know that you are here with me. Crouch down behind some jutting rock so they cannot see you. Whatever insults they may hurl at me, you must not fear. I know how things are run here. I have been caught in as bad a fix before." He crossed the bridge and walked on past the end. As soon as he set foot on the 6th bank, he forced himself to look as bold as possible. With all the sound and fury that breaks loose when dogs rush out at some poor begging tramp, making him stop and beg from where he stands, the ones who hid beneath the bridge sprang out and blocked him with a flourish of their pitchforks, but he shouted, "All of you behave yourselves. Before you start to jab me with your forks, let one of you step forth to hear me out, and then decide if you still care to grapple." They all cried out, "Let Malacoda go!" One stepped forward, the others stood their ground, and moving said, "What good will this do him?" "Do you think, Malacoda," said my master, "that you would see me here, all this way, against all opposition, and still safe, without propitious fate and God's permission? Now let us pass, for it is willed in heaven that I lead another by this savage path." With this the devil's arrogance collapsed. His pitchfork, too, dropped right down to his feet, and he announced to all, "Don't touch this man. You, hiding over there," my guide called me, "behind the bridge's rocks, curled up and quiet. Come back to me. You may return in safety." At his words I rose and then I ran to him, and all the devils made a movement forward. I feared they would not really keep their pact. I remember seeing soldiers under truce as they left the castle of Caprona, frightened to be passing in the midst of such an enemy. I drew up close to him, as close as possible, and did not take my eyes from all those faces that certainly had nothing good about them. Their prongs were aimed at me, and one was saying, "Now do I let him have it in the rump?" They all answered all for one, "Sure, stick him good." But the devil who had spoken with my guide was quick to spin around and scream an order, "At ease there! Take it easy, Scarmiglione!"
Then he said to us, "You cannot travel straight across this string of bridges, for the sixth arch lies broken at the bottom of its ditch. If you have made up your mind to proceed, you must continue on along this ridge. Not far you'll find a bridge that crosses it. 5 hours more, and it will be 1,266 years and a day since the bridgeway here fell crumbling to the ground. I plan to send a squad of mine that way to see that no one airs himself down there. Go along with them, they will not misbehave. Front and center, Alichino, Calcabrina," he shouted his commands. "You too, Cagnazzo. Barbariccia, you be captain of the squad. Take Libicoccio with you, and Dragignazzo, Tuthiciriato, and Graffiacane, Farfarello, and our crazy Rubicante. Now tour the ditch, inspect the boiling tar. These two shall have safe passage to the bridge, connecting den to den without a break." "Oh, master, I don't like the looks of this," I said. "Let's go just you and me, no escort. You know the way, I want no part of them. If you're observant, as you usually are, why is it you don't see them grind their teeth and wink at one another? We're in danger." And he to me, "I will not have you frightened. Let them do all the grinding that they want. They do it for the boiling souls, not us." Before they turned left face along the bank, each one gave their head captain a salute, with farting tongue pressed tightly to his teeth, and he blew back with his bugle of an asshole. Canto 22. I have seen troops of horsemen breaking camp, opening the attack, or passing in review. I have even seen them fleeing for their lives. I have seen scouts ride, exploring your terrain, O Aretinese. I have seen raiding parties in the clash of tournaments, the run of jousts, to the tune of trumpets, to the ring of clanging bells, to the roll of drums, to the flash of flares on ramparts, to the accompaniment of every known device. But I never saw cavalry or infantry, or ships that sail by landmarks or by stars, signaled to set off by such strange bugling. So, on our way we went with those 10 fiends. What savage company, but in church with saints, with rowdy good-for-nothings in the tavern. My attention was now fixed upon the pitch to see the operations of this Bolgia, and how the cooking souls got on down there. Much like dolphins that are said to surface with their backs arched to warn all men at sea to rig their ships for stormy seas ahead, so now and then a sinner's back would surface in order to alleviate his pain, then dive to hide as quick as lightning strikes. Like squatting frogs along the ditch's edge, with just their muzzles sticking out of the water, their legs and all the rest concealed below, these sinners squatted all around their pond, but as soon as Barbariccia would approach, they quickly ducked beneath the boiling pitch. I saw, my heart still shudders at the thought, one lingering behind. As it sometimes happens, one frog remains while all the rest dive down, and Graffiacan, standing in front of him, hooked and twirled him by his pitchy hair and hoisted him. He looked just like an otter. By then I knew the names of all the fiends. I had listened carefully when they were chosen, each of them stepping forth to match his name. "Hey, Rubicante, dig your claws down deep into his back and peel the skin off him," this fiendish chorus egged him on with screams. I said, "Master, will you, if you can, find out the name of that poor wretch who has just fallen into the cruel hands of his adversaries?" My guide walked up to the sinner's side, and asked where he was from, and he replied, "I was born and bred in the kingdom of Navarre. My mother gave me to a lord to serve, for she had me by some dishonest spendthrift who ran through all he owned and killed himself. Then I became a servant in the household of good King Tybalt. There I learned my graft, and now I pay my bill by boiling here." Ciriato, who had 2 tusks sticking out on both sides of his mouth just like a boar's, let him feel how just one tusk could rip him open. The mouse had fallen prey to evil cats, but Barbariccia locked him with his arms, shouting, "Get back while I've got hold of him." Then toward my guide he turned his face and said, "If you want more from him, keep questioning before he's torn to pieces by the others." My guide went on, "Then tell me, do you know of some Italians stuck among these sinners beneath the pitch?" And he, "A second ago,
I was with one who lived around these parts. Oh, I wish I were under cover with him now. I wouldn't have these hooks or claws to fear. Libicocho cried, We've waited long enough. Then with his fork he hooked the sinner's arm, and tearing at it, he pulled out a piece. Draghignazo, too, was anxious for some fun. He tried the wretch's leg, but their captain quickly spun around and gave them all a dirty look. As soon as they calmed down a bit, my master began to interrogate the wretch, who was still contemplating his new wound. Who was it, you were saying, that unluckily you left behind when you came ashore? Gomita, he said, the friar from Galura, receptacle for every kind of fraud. When his lord's enemies were in his hands, the treatment they received delighted them. He took their cash, and as he says, hushed up the case and let them off. None of his acts was petty grafting. All were of sovereign order. He spends his time with Don Michele Zanche and of Logodoro, talking on and on about Sardinia, their tongues no worse for the wear. Oh, but look how one that grins and grinds his teeth. I could tell you so much more, but I am afraid he is going to grate my scabby hide for me. But their master sergeant turned the farfarello, whose wild eyes warned he was about to strike, shouting, Get away, you filthy bird of prey! If you would like to see Tuscans or Lombards, the frightened shade took up where he left off, and have a talk with them, I'll bring some here. But the Malabranche must back up a bit, or else those shades won't risk a surfacing. I, by myself, will bring you up a catch of 7 without moving from this spot, just by whistling. That's our signal to the rest when one peers out and sees the coast is clear. Cagnazzo raised his snout at such a story, then shook his head and said, Listen to the trick he's cooked up to get off the hook by jumping. And he, full of tricks his trade had taught him, said, Tricky I surely am, especially when it comes to getting friends into worse trouble. But Alikin could not resist the challenge, and in spite of what the others thought, cried out, If you jump, I won't come galloping for you. I've got my wings to beat you to the pitch. We'll clear this ledge and wait behind this slope. Let's see if one of you can outmatch us. Now listen, reader. Here's a game that's strange. They all turned toward the slope, and first to turn was the fiend who from the start opposed the game. The Navarrese had perfect sense of timing. Feet planted to the ground, in a flash he jumped. The devil's plan was foiled, and he was free. The squad was stung with shame, but most of all the one who brought this blunder to perfection. He swooped down, howling, Now I've got you caught! Little good it did, for wings could not outstrip the flight of terror. Down the sinner dived, and up the fiend was forced to strain his chest, like a falcon swooping down on a wild duck. The duck dives quickly out of sight. The falcon must fly back up, dejected and defeated. In the meantime, Calcabrina, furious, also took off, hoping the shade would make it, so he could pick a fight with his companion. And when he saw the grafter hit the pitch, he turned his claws to grapple with his brother, and they tangled in midair above the ditch. But the other was a full-fledged hawk as well, and used his claws on him, and both of them went plunging straight into the boiling pond. The heat was quick to make them separate, but there seemed no way of getting out of there. Their wings were clogged and could not lift them up. Barbariccia, no less peeved than all his men, sent 4 fiends flying to the other shore with their equipment at top speed. Instantly, some here, some there, they took the posts assigned them. They stretched their hooks to reach the pitch-dipped pair, who were by now deep fried within their crusts. And there we left them, all messed up that way.
Canto 23. In silence, all alone without an escort, we moved along, one behind the other, like minor friars bent upon a journey. I was thinking over one of Aesop's fables that this recent skirmish had brought back to mind, where he tells the story of the frog and mouse. For yon and there could not be more alike than the fable and the fact, if one compares the start and finish of both incidents. As from one thought another arises, so this thought gave quick birth to another, and then the fear I first had felt was doubled. I was thinking, since these fiends, on our account, were tricked and mortified by mockery, they certainly will be more than resentful, with rage now added to their evil instincts. They will hunt us down with all the savagery of dogs about to pounce upon the hare. I felt my body's skin begin to tighten. I was so frightened, and I kept looking back. "Oh, master," I said,
If you do not hide both of us, and very quick, I am afraid of the Malabranque. Right now they're on our trail. I feel they're here. Even I think I hear them now." And he replied, "Even if I were a mirror, I could not reflect your outward image faster than your inner thoughts transmit themselves to me. In fact, just now they joined themselves with mine, and since they were alike in birth and form, I decided to unite them toward one goal. If the right-hand bank should slope in such a way as to allow us to descend to the next Bolgia, we could escape that chase we have imagined." He had hardly finished telling me his plan when I saw them coming with their wings wide open, not too far off, and now they meant to get us. My guide instinctively caught hold of me, like a mother waking to some warning sound, who sees the rising flames are getting close, and grabs her son and runs. She does not wait the short time it would take to put on something. She cares not for herself, only for him. And over the edge, then down the stony bank he slid, on his back along the sloping rock that walls the higher side of the next Bolgia. Water that turns a mill wheel never ran the narrow sluice at greater speed, not even at the point before it hits the paddle blades. Then down that sloping border my guide slid, bearing me with him, clasping me to his chest, as though I were his child, not his companion. His feet had hardly touched rock bottom, when there they were, the 10 of them, above us on the height, but now there was no need to fear. High Providence that willed for them to be the ministers in charge of the 5th ditch also willed them powerless to leave their realm. And now, down there, we found a painted people. Slow motion, step by step they walked their round in tears, all seeming wasted by fatigue. All were wearing cloaks with hoods pulled low, covering the eyes. The style was much the same as those the Benedictines wear at Cluny. Dazzling, gilded cloaks outside, but inside they were lined with lead, so heavy that the capes King Frederick used, compared to these, were straw. O cloak of everlasting weariness! We turned again, as usual, to the left, and moved with them, those souls lost in their mourning. But with their weight that tired-out race of shades paced on so slowly that we found ourselves in new company with every step we took. And so I asked my guide, "Please look around and see, as we keep walking, if you find someone whose name or deeds are known to me." And one who overheard me speaking Tuscan cried out somewhere behind us, "Not so fast, you there, rushing ahead through this heavy air. Perhaps from me you can obtain an answer." At this my guide turned toward me, saying, "Stop and wait for him, then match your pace with his." I paused and saw 2 shades with straining faces, revealing their mind's haste to join my side, but the weight they bore and the crowded road delayed them. When they arrived, they looked at me sideways, and for some time, without exchanging words. Then they turned to one another and were saying, "He seems alive, the way his throat is moving, and if both are dead, what privilege allows them to walk uncovered by the heavy cloak?" Then they spoke to me, "O Tuscan, who has come to visit the college of the sullen hypocrites, do not disdain to tell us who you are." I answered them, "I was born and I grew up in the great city on the lovely Arno's shore, and I have the body I have always had. But who are you, distilling tears of grief, so many I see running down your cheeks? And what kind of pain is this that can it glitter?" One of them answered, "The orange-gilded cloaks are thick with lead, so heavy that it makes us, who are the scales it hangs on, creak as we walk. Jovial friars we were, both from Bologna. My name was Catalano, his Loderingo, and both of us were chosen by your city, that usually would choose one man alone to keep the peace. Evidence of what we were may still be seen around Gardingo's parts." I began, "O friars, all your wretchedness," but said no more. I couldn't, for I saw one crucified with 3 stakes on the ground. And when he saw me, all his body writhed, and through his beard he heaved out sighs of pain. Then Friar Catalano, who watched the scene, remarked, "That impaled figure you see there advised the Pharisees that it was expedient to sacrifice one man for all the people. Naked he lies stretched out across the road, as you can see, and he must feel the load of every weight that steps on him to cross. His father-in-law and all the other council members, who were the seed of evil for all Jews, are racked the same way all along this ditch." And I saw Virgil staring down amused at this body stretching out in crucifixion, so vilely punished in the eternal exile. Then he looked up and asked one of the friars, "Could you please tell us, if your rule permits, is there a passageway on the right somewhere by which the two of us may leave this place without summoning one of those black angels to come down here and raise us from the pit?" He answered, "Closer than you might expect. A ridge jutting out from the base of the great circle extends and bridges every hideous ditch, except this one whose arch is totally smashed and crosses nowhere, but you can climb up its massive ruins that slope against the bank." My guide stood there a while, his head bent low, then said, "He told a lie about this business, that one who hooks the sinners over there." And the friar, "Once, in Bologna, I heard discuss the devil's many vices. One of them is that he tells lies and is the father of all lies." In haste, taking great strides, my guide walked off, his face revealing traces of his anger. I turned and left the heavy-weighted souls to make my way behind those cherished footprints. Canto 24. In the season of the newborn year, when the sun renews its rays beneath Aquarius, and nights begin to last as long as days, at the time the hoar-frost paints upon the ground the outward semblance of his snow-white sister, but the color from his brush soon fades away. The peasant wakes, gets up, goes out, and sees the fields all white. No fodder for his sheep. He smites his thighs in anger, and goes back into his shack, and pacing up and down, complains, poor wretch, not knowing what to do. Once more he goes outdoors, and hope fills him again, when he sees the world has changed its face in so little time, and he picks up his crook, and out to pasture drives his sheep to graze. Just so I felt myself lose heart to see my master's face wearing a troubled look, and as quickly came the salve to heal my sore. For when we reached the shattered heap of bridge, my leader turned to me with that sweet look of warmth I first saw at the mountain's foot. He opened up his arms, but not before he had carefully studied how the ruins lay and found some sort of plan to pick me up. Like one who works and thinks things out ahead, always ready for the next move he will make, so, while he raised me up toward one great rock, he had already singled out another, saying, "Now get a grip on that rock there, but test it first to see it holds your weight." It was no road for one who wore a cloak. Even though I had his help, and he weighed nothing, we could hardly lift ourselves from crag to crag. And had it not been that the bank we climbed was lower than the one we had slidden down, I cannot speak for him, but I for one surely would have quit. But since the evil pits slope toward the yawning well that is the lowest, each valley is laid out in such a way that one bank rises higher than the next. We somehow finally reached the point above, where the last of all that rock was shaken loose. My lungs were so pumped out of breath by the time I reached the top I could not go on farther, and instantly I sat down where I was. "Come on, shake off the covers of this sloth," the master said, "for sitting softly cushioned or tucked in bed is no way to win fame, and without it man must waste his life away, leaving such traces of what he was on earth as smoke in wind and foam upon the water. Stand up, dominate this weariness of yours, with the strength of soul that wins in every battle, if it does not sink beneath the body's weight. Much steeper stairs than these we'll have to climb. We have not seen enough of sinners yet. If you understand me, act, learn from my words." At this I stood up straight and made it seem I had more breath than I began to breathe, and said, "Move on, for I am strong and ready." We climbed and made our way along the bridge, which was jagged, tight, and difficult to cross, and steep, far more than any we had climbed. Not to seem faint, I spoke while I was climbing. Then came a voice from the depths of the next chasm, a voice unable to articulate. I don't know what it said, even though I stood at the very top of the arch that crosses there. To me it seemed whoever spoke running. I was bending over, but no living eyes could penetrate the bottom of that darkness. Therefore, I said, "Master, why not go down this bridge onto the next encircling bank, for I hear sounds I cannot understand, and I look down, but I cannot see a thing." "No other answer," he replied, "I give you than doing what you ask, for a fit request is answered best in silence and in deed." From the bridge's height we came down to the point where it ends and joins the edge of the 8th bank, and then the Bolgia opened up to me.
Down there I saw a terrible confusion of serpents, all of such a monstrous kind the thought of them still makes my blood run cold. Let all the sands of Libya boast no longer, for though she breeds chelydri and joculi, pharians, kentres, and head-tailed amphisbanes, she never bred so great a plague of venom, not even if combined with Ethiopia or all the sands that lie by the Red Sea. Within this cruel and bitterest abundance, people ran terrified and naked, hopeless of finding hiding holes or heliotrope. Their hands were tied behind their backs with serpents, which pushed their tails and heads around the loins and coiled themselves in knots around the front. And then, at a sinner running by our bank, a snake shot out, and striking hit his mark, right where the neck attaches to the shoulder. No oar or eye was ever quicker put to pen by paper to pen than he flared up and burned, and turned into a heap of crumbled ash. And then, these ashes scattered on the ground began to come together on their own and quickly take the form they had before. Precisely so, philosophers declare, the phoenix dies to be reborn again as she approaches her 500th year. Alive, she does not feed on herbs or grain, but on teardrops of frankincense and balm, and wraps herself to die in nard and myrrh. As a man in a fit will fall, not knowing why, perhaps some hidden demon pulls him down, or some appellation chokes his vital spirits. Then struggling to his feet will look around, confused and overwhelmed by the great anguish he has suffered, moaning as he stares about. So did this sinner when he finally rose. Oh, how harsh the power of the Lord can be, raining in its vengeance blows like these. My guide asked him to tell us who he was, and he replied, "It's not too long ago I reigned from Tuscany to this fierce gullet. I loved the bestial life more than the human. Like the bastard that I was, I'm Vanni Fucci the beast. Pistoia was my fitting den." I told my guide, "Tell him not to run away. Ask him what sin has driven him down here, for I knew him as a man of bloody rage." The sinner heard and did not try to feign. Directing straight at me his mind and face, he reddened with a look of ugly shame, and said, "That you have caught me by surprise here in this wretched Bolgia makes me grieve more than the day I lost my other life. Now I am forced to answer what you ask. I am stuck so far down here because of theft. I stole the treasure of the sacristy, a crime falsely attributed to another. I don't want you to rejoice at having seen me. If ever you escape from these dark pits, so open your eyes and hear my prophecy. Pistoia first shall be stripped of all its blacks, and Florence then shall change its men and laws. From Vladimagre Mars shall thrust a bolt of lightning wrapped in thick foreboding clouds. Then bolt and clouds will battle bitterly, in a violent storm above Piceno's fields, where rapidly the bolt will burst the cloud, and no wight will escape without his wounds. And I have told you this so you will suffer." Canto 25. When he had finished saying this, the thief shaped his fists into figs and raised them high, and cried, "Here, God, I've shaped them just for you." From then on, all those snakes became my friends, for one of them at once coiled round his neck, as if to say, "That's all you're going to say?" While another twisted round his arms in front. It tied itself into so tight a knot, between the two he could not move a muscle. Pistoia, ah Pistoia, why not resolve to burn yourself to ashes, ending all, since you have done more evil than your founders? Throughout the circles of this dark inferno, I saw no shade so haughty toward his god, not even he who fell from Thebes' high walls. Without another word he fled, and then I saw a raging centaur gallop up, roaring, "Where is he? Where is that untamed beast?" I think that all Maremma does not have as many snakes as he had on his back, right up to where his human form begins. Upon his shoulders, just behind the nape, a dragon with its wings spread wide was crouching and spitting fire at whoever came its way. My master said to me, "That one is Cacus, who more than once in the grotto far beneath Mount Aventine spilled blood to fill a lake. He does not go the same road as his brothers, because of the cunning way he committed theft when he stole his neighbor's famous cattle herd.
and then his evil deeds came to an end beneath the club of Hercules, who struck 100 blows, and he perhaps felt 10. While he was speaking, Cacus galloped off. At the same time, 3 shades appeared below us. My guide and I would not have seen them there if they had not cried out, "Who are you?" At this we cut our conversation short to give our full attention to these 3. I didn't know who they were, but then it happened, as often it will happen just by chance, that one of them was forced to name another. "Where did Tianfa go off to?" he asked. And then, to keep my guide from saying anything, I put my finger tight against my lips. Now if, my reader, you should hesitate to believe what I shall say, there's little wonder, for I, the witness, scarcely can believe it. While I was watching them, all of a sudden a serpent, and it had 6 feet, shot up and hooked one of these wretches with all 6. With the middle feet it hugged the sinner's stomach, and with the front ones grabbed him by the arms, and bit him first through one cheek, then the other. The serpent spread its hind feet round both thighs, then stuck its tail between the sinner's legs, and up against his back the tail slid stiff. No ivy ever grew into a tree so tight entwined. The way that hideous beast had woven in and out its limbs with his. And then both started melting like hot wax, and fusing they began to mix their colors so neither one seemed what he was before. Just as a brownish tint, a head of flame, creeps up a burning page that is not black completely, even though the white is dying. The other 2 who watched began to shout, "Oh, Agnel, if you could see how you are changing, you're not yourself, and you're not both of you." The 2 heads had already fused to one, and features from each flowed and blended into one face where 2 were lost in one another. 2 arms of each were 4 blurred strips of flesh, and thighs with legs, then stomach and the chest sprouted limbs that human eyes have never seen. Each former likeness now was blotted out, both, and neither one, it seemed, this picture of deformity, and then it sneaked off slowly. Just as a lizard darting from hedge to hedge under the stinging lash of the dog days heat zip across the road like a flash of lightning, so rushing toward the 2 remaining thieves, aiming at their guts, a little serpent, fiery with rage and black as peppercorn, shot up and sank its teeth in one of them, right where the embryo receives its food, and then it fell and lay stretched out before them. The wounded thief stared speechless at the beast, and standing motionless began to yawn, as though he needed sleep, or had a fever. The snake and he were staring at each other, one from his wound, the other from its mouth, fumed violently, and smoke with smoke was mingling. Let Lucan for this moment on be silent, who tells of poor Nasidius and Sabalus, and wait to hear what I still have in store, and Ovid too with his Cadmus and Arethusa, though he metamorphosed one into a snake, the other to a fountain. I feel no envy, for never did he interchange 2 beings face to face, so that both forms were ready to exchange their substance, each one for the other's, an interchange of perfect symmetry. The serpent split its tail into a fork, and the wounded sinner drew his feet together. The legs, with both the thighs, closed in to join and in a short time fused, so that the juncture didn't show signs of ever having been there. The while the cloven tail assumed the features that the other one was losing, and its skin was growing soft, the other's getting scaly. I saw his arms retreating to the armpits, and the reptile's 2 front feet that had been short began to stretch the length the man's had shortened. The beast's hind feet then twisted round each other, and turned into the member man conceals, while from the wretch's member grew 2 legs. The smoke from each was swirling round the other, exchanging colors, bringing out the hair where there was none, and stripping off the others. The one rose up, the other sank, but neither dissolved the bond between their evil stares, fixed eye to eye, exchanging face for face. The standing creature's face began receding toward the temples. From the excess stuff pulled back, the ears were growing out of flattened cheeks, while from the excess flesh that did not flee the front, a nose was fashioned for the face, and lips puffed out to just the normal size. The prostrate creature strains his face out long and makes his ears withdraw into his head, the way a snail pulls in its horns. The tongue, that once had been one piece and capable of forming words, divides into a fork, while the other's fork heals up. The smoke subsides. The soul that had been changed into a beast went hissing off along the valley's floor, the other close behind him spitting words. Then he turned his new-formed back on him and said to the shade left standing there, "Let Buoso run the valley on all fours the way I did." Thus I saw the cargo of the seventh hold exchange and interchange, and let the strangeness of it all excuse me if my pen has failed. And though the spectacle confused my eyes and stunned my mind, the two thieves could not flee so secretly I did not recognize that one was certainly Puccio Sciancato, and he alone of that company of three that first appeared did not change to something else. The other, he who made you mourn, Gavie. Canto 26. Be joyful, Florence, since you are so great, that your outstretched wings beat over land and sea, and your name is spread throughout the realm of hell. I was ashamed to find among the thieves 5 of your most eminent citizens, a fact which does you very little honor. But if early morning dreams have any truth, you will have the fate, if not too long a time, that Prato and the others crave for you. And were this the day, it would not be too soon. Would it had come to pass, since pass it must, the longer the delay, the more my grief. We started climbing up the stairs of boulders that had brought us to the place from where we watched. My guide went first and pulled me up behind him. We went along our solitary way among the rocks, among the ridges' crags, where the foot could not advance without the hand. I know that I grieved then, and now again I grieve when I remember what I saw, and more than ever I restrain my talent, lest it run a course that virtue has not set, for if a lucky star, or something better, has given me this good, I must not misuse it. As many fireflies, in the season when the one who lights the world hides his face least, in the hour when the flies yield to mosquitoes, as the peasant on the hillside at his ease sees, flickering in the valley down below, where perhaps he gathers grapes or tills the soil. With just so many flames, all the 8th Bolgia shone brilliantly, as I became aware when I at last stood where the depths were visible. As he who was avenged by bears beheld Elijah's chariot at its departure, when the rearing horses took to flight toward heaven, and though he tried to follow with his eyes, he could not see more than the flame alone, like a small cloud once it had risen high. So each flame moves itself along the throat of the abyss, none showing what it steals, but each one stealing none the less a sinner. I was on the bridge, leaning far over, so far that if I had not grabbed some jut of rock I could easily have fallen to the bottom. And my guide, who saw me so absorbed, explained, "These are the souls concealed within these moving fires, each one swathed in his burning punishment." "O master," I replied, "from what you say I know now I was right. I had guessed already it might be so, and I was about to ask you. Who's in that flame with its tip split in two, like that one which once sprang up from the pyre where Eteocles was placed beside his brother?" He said, "Within, Ulysses and Diomed are suffering in anger with each other. Just vengeance makes them march together now. And they lament inside one flame the ambush of the horse become the gateway that allowed the Romans' noble seed to issue forth. Therein they mourn the trick that caused the grief of Diademia, who still weeps for Achilles, and there they pay for the Palladium." "If it is possible to speak from within those flames," I said, "Master, I pray, and repay you, let my prayer be like 1,000, that you do not forbid me to remain until the 2-horned flame comes close to us. You see how I bend toward it with desire." "Your prayer indeed is worthy of highest praise," he said to me, "and therefore I shall grant it. But see to it your tongue refrains from speaking. Leave it to me to speak, for I know well what you would ask. Perhaps, Since they were Greeks, they might not pay attention to your words. So when the flame had reached us, and my guide decided that the time and place were right, he addressed them, and I listened to him speaking. O you who are two souls within one fire, if I have deserved from you when I was living, if I have deserved from you much praise or little, when in the world I wrote my lofty verses, do not move on. Let one of you tell where he lost himself through his own fault and died. The greater of the ancient flame's two horns began to sway and quiver, murmuring just like a flame that strains against the wind. Then, while its tip was moving back and forth, as if it were the tongue itself that spoke, the flame took on a voice and said, When I set sail from Kirke, who more than a year had kept me occupied close to Gaeta before Aeneas called it by that name, not sweetness of a son, not reverence for an aging father, not the debt of love I owed Penelope to make her happy, could quench deep in myself the burning wish to know the world and have experience of all man's vices, of all human worth. So I set out on the deep and open sea with just one ship, and with that group of men, not many, who had not deserted me. I saw as far as Spain, far as Morocco, both shores. I had left behind Sardinia, and the other islands which that sea encloses. I and my mates were old and tired men. Then finally we reached the narrow peck where Hercules put up his signal pillars, to warn men not to go beyond that point. On my right I saw Seville and passed beyond. On my left Ceuta had already sunk behind me. Brothers, I said, who through 100,000 perils have made your way to reach the west, during this so brief vigil of our senses that is reserved for us still, do not deny yourself experience of what there is beyond, behind the sun, in the world they call unpeopled. Consider what you came from. You are Greeks. You were not born to live like mindless brutes, but to follow paths of excellence and knowledge. With this brief exhortation I made my crew so anxious for the way that lay ahead, that then I hardly could have held them back, and with our stern turned toward the morning light, we made our oars our wings for that mad flight, gaining distance, always sailing to the left. The night already had surveyed the stars the other pole contains. It saw ours so low that it did not show above the ocean floor. 5 times we saw the splendor of the moon grow full, and 5 times wane away again, since we had entered through the narrow pass. When there appeared a mountain shape, darkened by distance, that arose to endless heights, I had never seen another mountain like it. Our celebration soon turned to grief. From the new land there rose a whirling wind that beat against the forepart of the ship, and whirled us round 3 times in churning waters. The fourth blast raised the stern up high, and sent the bow down deep, as pleased another's will, and then the sea was closed again above us.
Canto 27. By now the flame was standing straight and still. It said no more, and had already turned from us, with sanction of the gentle poet. When another, coming right behind it, attracted our attention to its tip, where a roaring of confusion sounds had started. As the Sicilian bull, that bellowed first with cries of that one, and it served him right, who with his file had fashioned such a beast, would bellow with the victim's voice inside, so that, although the bull was only brass, the effigy itself seemed pierced with pain, so lacking any outlet to escape from the burning soul that was inside the flame, the suffering words became the fire's language. But after they had made their journey upward to reach the tip, giving it that same quiver the sinner's tongue inside had given them, we heard the words, O you to whom I point my voice who spoke just now in Lombard, saying, You may move on, I won't ask any more of you. Although I have been slow in coming to you, be willing, please, to pause and speak with me. You see how willing I am, and I burn. If you have just now fallen to this world of blindness from that sweet Italian land where I took on the burden of my guilt, tell me, are the Romagnols at war or peace? For I come from the hills between Urbino and the mountain chain that lets the Tiber loose. I was still bending forward listening, when my master touched my side and said to me, You speak to him. This one is Italian. and I, who was prepared to answer him, began without delaying my response. O soul who stands concealed from me down there, your Romagna is not now, and never was without war in her tyrants' hearts, although there was no open warfare when I came here. Ravenna's situation has not changed. The eagle of Polenta broods up there, covering all of Cerva with its pinions. The land that stood the test of long endurance, and left the French piled in a bloody heap, is once again beneath her verdant claws. Verruccio's old mastiff and its new one, who both were bad custodians of Montagna, still sink their fangs into people's flesh. The cities by Limone and Santerno are governed by the lion of the white lair, who changes parties every change of season. As for the town whose side the Savio bathes, just as it lies between the hills and plains, it lives between freedom and tyranny. And now I beg you tell us who you are. Grant me my wish as was granted you, so that your fame may hold its own on earth. And when the fire, in its own way, had roared a while, the flame's sharp tip began to sway to and fro, then released a blow of words. If I thought that I were speaking to a soul who some day might return to see the world, most certainly this flame would cease to flicker. But since no one, if I have heard the truth, ever returns alive from this deep pit, with no fear of dishonor I answer you. I was a man of arms and then a friar, believing with the cord to make amends, and surely my belief would have come true, were it not for that high priest, his soul be damned, who put me back among my early sins. I want to tell you why and how it happened. While I still had the form of the bones and flesh my mother gave me, all my actions were not those of a lion, but those of a fox. The wiles and covert paths, I knew them all, and so employed my art that rumor of me spread to the farthest limits of the earth. When I saw that the time of life had come for me, as it must come for every man, to lower the sails and gather in the lines, things I once found pleasure in then grieved me. Repentant and confessed, I took the vows a monk takes, and oh to think it could have worked. And then the prince of the new Pharisees chose to wage war upon the Lateran instead of fighting Saracens or Jews. For all his enemies were Christian souls, none among the ones who conquered Acre, none a traitor in the Sultan's kingdom. His lofty papal seat, his sacred vows, were no concern to him, nor was the cord I wore that once made those it girded leaner. As Constantine once had Silvestro brought from Mount Soracte to cure his leprosy, so this one sought me out as his physician, to cure his burning fever caused by pride. He asked me to advise him. I was silent, for his words were drunken. Then he spoke again. Fear not, I tell you, the sin you will commit. It is forgiven. Now you will teach me how I can level Palestrina to the ground. Mine is the power, as you cannot deny, to lock and unlock heaven. 2 keys I have. These keys my predecessor did not cherish. And when his weighty arguments had forced me to the point that silence seemed the poorer choice, I said, Father, since you grant me absolution for the sin I find I must fall into now, ample promise with a scant fulfillment will bring you triumph on your lofty throne. St. Francis came back to get me when I died, but one of the black cherubim cried out, Don't touch him, don't cheat me of what is mine. He must come down to join my other servants for the false counsel he gave. From then now I have been ready at his hair, because one cannot be absolved unless repentant, nor can one both repent and will a thing at once. The one is cancelled by the other. O wretched me, how I shook when he took me, saying, Perhaps you never stopped to think that I might be somewhat of a logician. He took me down to Minos, who 8 times twisted his tail around his hardened back. Then in his rage he bit it, and announced, He goes with those the thievish fire burns. And here you see me now, lost, wrapped this way, moving as I do with my resentment. When he had brought his story to a close, the flame in grievous pain departed from us, gnarling and flickering its pointed horn. My guide and I moved farther on. We climbed the ridge until we stood on the next arch that spans the fosse where the penalties are paid, by those who sowing discord earned hell's wages. Canto 28.
Who could, even in the simplest kind of prose, describe in full the scene of blood and wounds that I saw now, no matter how he tried? Certainly any tongue would have to fail. Man's memory and man's vocabulary are not enough to comprehend such pain. If one could bring together all the wounded who once upon the fateful soil of Puglia grieved for their life's blood spilled by the Romans, and spilled again in the long years of the war that ended in great spoils of golden rings, as Livy's history tells that does not err, and pile them with the ones who felt the blows when they stood up against the great Robert Guiscard, and with those others whose bones are still in heaps at Ceprano, where every Puglian turned traitor, and add those from Tagliacozzo, where old Alardo conquered weaponless. If all these maimed with limbs lopped off or pierced were brought together, the scene would be nothing to compare with the foul Knight Bolgia's bloody sight. No wine cask with its stave or cant bar sprung was ever split the way I saw someone ripped open from his chin to where we fart. Between his legs his guts spilled out, with the heart and other vital parts, and the dirty sack that turns to shit whatever the mouth gulps down. While I stood staring into his misery, he looked at me, and with both hands he opened his chest and said, "See how I tear myself, see how Mohammed is deformed and torn. In front of me and weeping Ali walks, his face cleft from his chin up to the crown. The souls that you see passing in this ditch were all sowers of scandal and schism in life, and so in death you see them torn asunder. A devil stands back there who trims us all in this cruel way, and each one of this mob receives anew the blade of the devil's sword each time we make one round of this sad road, because the wounds have healed up all again by the time each one presents himself once more. But who are you there, gawking from the bridge, and trying to put off perhaps fulfillment of the sentence passed on you when you confessed?" "Death does not have him yet. He is not here to suffer for his guilt," my master answered, "but that he may have full experience. I, who am dead, must lead him through this hell, from round to round, down to the very bottom, and this is as true as my present speaking here." More than 100 in that ditch stopped short to look at me when they had heard his words, forgetting in their stupor what they suffered. "And you, who will behold the sun, perhaps, quite soon, tell Fra Dolcino that unless he wants to follow me here quick, he'd better stock up on food, or else the binding snows will give the Novarese their victory, a conquest not won easily otherwise." With the heel of one foot raised to take a step, Mohammed said these words to me, and then stretched out and down his foot and moved away. Another, with his throat slit, and his nose cut off as far as where the eyebrows start, and he only had a single ear to show, who had stopped like all the rest to stare in wonder, stepped out from the group and opened up his throat, which ran with red from all sides of his wound, and spoke. "O you whom guilt does not condemn, whom I have seen in Italy up there, unless I am deceived by similarity, recall to mind Pier da Medicina, should you return to see the gentle plain declining from Vercelli to Marcabo, and inform the two best citizens of Fano, tell Messer Guido and tell Angiolello, that if our foresight here is no deception, from their ship they shall be hurled bound in a sack to drown in the water near Cattolica, the victims of a tyrant's treachery. Between the isles of Cyprus and Mallorca, so great a crime Neptune never witnessed among the deeds of pirates or the Argives. That traitor, who sees only with one eye and rules the land that someone with me here wishes he'd never fed his eyes on, will have them come to join him in a parley, and see to it they do not waste their breath on vows or prayers to escape Foccara's wind." And I to him, "If you want me to bring back to those on earth your message, who is the one sated with the bitter sight? Show him to me." At once he grabbed the jaws of a companion standing nearby and squeezed his mouth half open, announcing, "Here he is, and he is mute. This man, in exile, drowned all Caesar's doubts, and helped him cast the die when he insisted, 'A man prepared who hesitates is lost.'
How helpless and bewildered he appeared, his tongue hacked off as far down as the throat, this Curio, once so bold and quick to speak. And one who had both arms but had no hands, raising the gory stumps in the filthy air so that the blood dripped down and smeared his face, cried, "You, no doubt, also remember Mosca, who said, alas, what's done is over with, and sowed the seed of discord for the Tuscans." "And of death for all you clan," I quickly said. And he, his fresh wound added to his wound, turned and went off like one god mad from pain. But I remained to watch the multitude, and saw a thing that I would be afraid to tell about without more evidence, were I not reassured by my own conscience, that good companion in heartening a man beneath the breastplate of its purity. I saw it, I'm sure, and I seemed to see it still, a body with no head that moved along, moving no differently from all the rest. He held his severed head up by its hair, swinging it in one hand just like a lantern, and as it looked at us it said, "Alas, of his own self he made himself a light, and they were two in one and one in two. How could this be? He ordained it knows, and when he arrived below our bridge, he raised the arm that held the head up high, and let it speak to us at closer range. It spoke. Now, see the monstrous punishment. You there still breathing, looking at the dead, see if you find suffering to equal mine. And that you may report on me up there, know that I am Bertrand de Born, the one who evilly encouraged the young king. Father and son I set against each other. Achitophel with his wicked instigations did not do more with Absalom and David. Because I cut the bonds of those so joined, I bear my head cut off from its life source, which is back there, alas, within its trunk. In me you see the perfect contrapasso." Canto 29. The crowds, the countless different mutilations, had stunned my eyes and left them so confused they wanted to keep looking and to weep. But Virgil said, "What are you staring at? Why do your eyes insist on drowning there below, among those wretched broken shades? You did not act this way in other Bolge. If you hope to count them one by one, remember, the valley winds some 22 miles round, and already the moon is underneath our feet. The time remaining for us now is short, and there is more to see than you see there here. If you had taken time to find out what I was looking for," I started telling him, "perhaps you would have let me stay there longer." My guide was moving on, with me behind him, answering as I did while we went on, and adding, "Somewhere down along this ditch that I was staring at a while ago, I think there is a spirit of my family, mourning the guilt that's paid so dear down here." And then my master said, "From this time on, you should not waste another thought on him. Think on ahead and let him stay behind." For I saw him standing underneath the bridge, pointing at you, and threatening with his gesture, and I heard his name called out, "Geri del Bello." That was the moment you were so absorbed with him who was the Lord of Altaforte, that you did not look his way before he left. "Alas, my guide," I answered him, "his death by violence, which has not yet been avenged by anyone who shares in his disgrace, made him resentful, and I suppose for this he went away without a word to me, and because he did, I feel great piety." We spoke of this until we reached the start of the bridge across the next Bolgia, from which the bottom, with more light, might have been seen. Having come to stand above the final cloister of Malebolge, we saw it spreading out, revealing to our eyes its congregation. Weird shrieks of lamentation pierced through me, like arrow shafts whose tips are barbed with pity, so that my hands were covering my ears. Imagine all the sick in the hospitals of Maremma, Valdichiana, and Sardinia between the months of July and September, crammed all together, rotting in one ditch. Such was the misery there, and such a stench was pouring out as comes from flesh decaying. Still keeping to our left, we made our way down the long bridge onto the final bank, and now my sight was clear enough to find the bottom where the High Lord's ministress, Justice Infallible, metes out her punishment to falsifiers she registers on earth.
If all those dying in Aegina, when the air was blowing sick with pestilence, and the animals, down to the smallest worm, all perished, later on this ancient race, according to what the poets tell is true, was born again from families of ants, offered a scene of greater agony than was the sight spread out in that dark valley of heaped-up spirits languishing in clumps. Some sprawled out on others' bellies, some on others' backs, and some on hands and knees, dragged themselves along that squalid alley. Slowly, in silence, slowly we moved along, looking, listening to the words of all those sick who had no strength to raise their bodies up. I saw two sitting, leaning against each other, like pans propped back to back against a fire, and they were blotched from head to foot with scabs. I never saw a currycomb applied by stable boy who is harried by his master, or simply wants to finish and go to bed, the way those two applied their nails, and dug into their flesh, crazy to ease the itching that can never find a relief. They worked their nails down, scraping off the scabs the way one works a knife to scale a bream or some other fish with larger, tougher scales. "Oh, you there, scraping off your scabs of mail and even making pincers of your fingers," my guide began to speak to one of them. "So may your fingernails eternally suffice their task. Tell us, among the many packed in this space, is anyone Italian?" "Both of us whom you see disfigured here," one answered through his tears. "We are Italians. But you, who ask about us, who are you?" "I am one accompanying this living man descending bank from bank," my leader said, "and I intend to show him all of hell." With that, each lost the other's back support, and each one, shaky, turned to look at me, as others who overheard these words. My gentle master came up close to me, and said, "Now ask them what you want to know." And since he wanted me to speak, I started. "So may the memory of you not fade from the minds of men up there in the first world, but rather live on under many suns. Tell me your names and where it was you lived. Do not let your dreadful, loathsome punishment discourage you from speaking openly." "I'm from Arezzo," one of them replied, "and Albert of Siena had me burned, but I'm not here for what I died for there. It's true," I told him, jokingly of course, "I know the trick of flying through the air," and he, eager to learn and not too bright, asked me to demonstrate my art, and only just because I didn't make him Daedalus, he had me burned by one whose child he was. But here, to the last bolgia of the 10, for the alchemy I practiced in the world, I was condemned by Minos, who cannot err. I said to my poet, "Have you ever known people as silly as the Sienese? Even the French cannot compare with them." With that, the other leper who was listening feigned exception to my quip. "Excluding, of course, Strica, who lived so frugally, and Nicolo, the first to introduce the luxury of the clove for condiment into that choice garden where the seed took rot, and surely not that fashionable club where Ciacca squandered all his woods and vineyards, and Abbagliato flaunted his great wit. That you may know who is backing you against the Sienese, look sharply at me, so that my face will give you its own answer. And you will recognize Capocchio's shade, betrayer of metals with his alchemy. You'll truly recall, if you're the one I think, how fine an ape of nature I once was." Canto 30. In ancient times, when Juno was enraged against the Thebans because of Semele, she showed her wrath on more than one occasion. She made King Athamas go raving mad, so mad that one day when he saw his wife coming with his 2 sons in either arm, he cried, "Let's spread the net so I can catch the lioness with her lion cubs at the pass." Then he spread out his insane hands like talons, and seizing one of his 2 sons, Learchus, he whirled him round and smashed him on a rock. She drowned herself with the other in her arms. And when the wheel of fortune brought down low the immeasurable haughtiness of Trojans, destroying in their downfall king and kingdom, Hecuba sad, in misery, a slave, after she saw Polyxena lie slain, and after this grieving mother found her son Polydorus left unburied on the shore, now gone quite mad, went barking like a dog. It was the weight of grief that snapped her mind. But never in Thebes or Troy were madmen seen driven to acts of such ferocity against their victims, animal or human, as two shades I saw, white with rage and naked, running, snapping crazily at things in sight, like pigs directionless, broken from their pen. One, landing on Capocchio, sank his teeth into his neck and started dragging him along, scraping his belly on the rocky ground. The Aretine spoke, shaking where he sat. You see that batty shade? He's Gianni Schicchi. He's rabid and treats us all that way. Oh, I answered. So may that other shade never sink its teeth in you. If you don't mind, please tell me who it is before it's gone. And he to me, that is the ancient shade of Mira, the depraved one, who became, against love laws, too much her father's friend. She went to him, and there she sinned in love, pretending that her body was another's, just as the other there fleeing in the distance contrived to make his own the queen of studs, pretending that he was Buoso Donati, making his will and giving it due form. Now that the rabid pair had come and gone, from whom I never took my eyes away, I turned to watch the other evil shades, and there I saw a soul shaped like a lute, if only he'd been cut off from his legs below the belly where they divide in two. The bloating dropsy, disproportioning the body's parts with unconverted humors, so that the face, matched with the paunch, was puny, forced him to keep his parched lips wide apart, as a man who suffers thirst from raging fever has one lip curling up, the other sagging. O you who bear no punishment at all, I can't think why, within this world of sorrow, he said to us, pause here and look upon the misery of one Master Adamo. In life I had all that I could desire, and now, alas, I crave a drop of water. The little streams that flow from the green hills of Casentino, descending to the Arno, keeping their banks so cool and soft with moisture, forever flow before me, haunting me, and the image of them leaves me far more parched than the sickness that has dried my shriveled face. Relentless justice, tantalizing me, exploits the countryside that knew my sin, to draw from me ever new sighs of pain. I can still see Romena, where I learned to falsify the coin stamped with the Baptist, for which I paid with my burned body there. But if I could see down here the wretched souls of Guido or Alexander or their brother, I would not exchange the sight for Branda's fountain. One is here already, if those maniacs running around this place have told the truth, but what good is it with my useless legs? If only I were lighter, just enough to move 1 inch in every 100 years, I would have started on my way by now to find him somewhere in this gruesome lot, although this ditch winds round 11 miles and is at least half a mile across. It's their fault I am here with this choice family. They encouraged me to turn out the florins, whose gold contained 3 carats worth of alloy. And I to him, who are those 2 souls lying to the right, close to your body's boundary, steaming like wet hands in winter time? When I poured into this ditch, I found them here, he answered, and they haven't budged since then, and I doubt they'll move through all eternity. One is the false accuser of young Joseph, the other is false Sinon, the Greek in Troy. It's their burning fever makes them smell so bad. And one of them, perhaps somewhat offended at the kind of introduction he received, with his fist stuck out from at the distended belly, which responded like a drum reverberating, and Master Adam struck him in the face with an arm as strong as the fist he had received, and he said to him, although I am not free to move around with swollen legs like these, I have a ready arm for such occasions. But it was not as free and ready, was it? The other answered. When you went to the stake, of course, when you were coining, it was readier. And he with the dropsy. Now you tell the truth, but you were not as full of truth that time when you were asked to tell the truth at Troy. My words were false, so were the coins you made, said Sinon, and I am here for one false act, but you for more than any fiend in hell. The horse, recall the horse, you falsifier, the bloated paunch was quick to answer back. May it burn your guts that all the world remembers. May your guts burn with thirst that cracks your tongue, the Greek said. May they burn with rotting humors that swell your hedge of a paunch to block your eyes. and then the money man. So there you go, your evil mouth pours forth its filth as usual. For if I thirst, and humors swell me up, you burn more, and your head is fit to split, and it wouldn't take much coaxing to convince you to lap the mirror of Narcissus dry. I was listening, all absorbed in this debate, when the master said to me, "Keep right on looking, a little more, and I shall lose my patience." I heard the note of anger in his voice and turned to him. I was so full of shame that it still haunts my memory today. Like one asleep who dreams himself in trouble, and in his dream he wishes he were dreaming, longing for that which is as if it were not, just so I found myself, unable to speak, longing to beg for pardon, and already begging for pardon, not knowing that I did. Less shame than yours would wash away a fault greater than yours has been, my master said. And so forget about it. Do not be sad. If ever again you should meet up with men engaging in this kind of futile wrangling, remember I am always at your side. To have a taste for talk like this is vulgar. Canto 31. The very tongue that first spoke, stinging me, making the blood rush up to both my cheeks, then gave me remedy to ease the pain. Just as, so I have heard, Achilles' lance, belonging to his father, was the source of pain and then of balm, to him it struck. Turning our backs on that trench of misery, gaining the bank again that walls it in, we cut across, walking in dead silence. Here it was less than night and less than day, so that my eyes could not see far ahead, but then I heard the blast of some high horn, which would have made a thunderclap sound dim. It drew my eyes directly to one place, as they retraced the sound's path to its source. After the tragic rout when Charlemagne lost all his faithful holy paladins, the sound of Roland's horn was not as ominous. Keeping my eyes still turned that way, I soon made out what seemed to be high, towered, clustered towers. "Master," I said, "what city lies ahead?" "Because you try to penetrate the shadows," he said to me, "from much too far away, you confuse the truth with your imagination. You will see clearly when you reach that place how much the eyes may be deceived by distance, and so just push ahead a little more." Then lovingly he took me by the hand and said, "But now, before we go on farther, I'll prepare you for the truth that could seem strange. I'll tell you, these aren't towers, they are giants. They're standing in the well around the bank, and all of them are hidden from their navels down. As, when fog begins to thin and clear, the sight can slowly make out more and more what is hidden in the mist that clogs the air, so, as I pierced the thick and murky air, approaching slowly closer to the well, confusion cleared and my fear took on more shape. For just as Monteregion is crowded with towers soaring high above its curving ramparts, so, on the bank that runs around the well, towering with only half their bodies out, stood the terrible giants, forever threatened by Jupiter in the heavens when he thunders. And now I could make out one of the faces, the shoulders, the chest, and a good part of the belly, and down along the sides the two great arms. Nature, when she cast away the mold for shaping beasts like these, without a doubt did well, depriving Mars of more such agents. And if she never did repent of whales and elephants, we must consider her, on sober thought, all the more just and wary, for when the faculty of intellect is joined with brute force and evil will, no man can win against such an alliance. His face, it seemed to me, was about as long and just as wide as St. Peter's cone in Rome, and all his body's bones were in proportion, so that the bank which served to cover him, from his waist down, showed so much height above that three tall Frisians on each other's shoulders could never boast of stretching to his hair. For downward, from the placemen clasped their cloaks, I saw a generous 30 handspans of him. "Raffel me amek zabi almi." He played these sputtering notes with prideful lips, for which no sweeter psalm was suitable. My guide called up to him, "Blathering idiot, stick to your horn and take it out on that when you feel a fit of anger coming on. Search round your neck and you will find the strap it's tied to, you poor muddle-headed soul, and there's the horn so pretty on your chest." And then he turned to me. His words accuse him. He is Nimrod, through whose infamous device the world no longer speaks a common language. But let's leave him alone and not waste breath, for he can no more understand our words than anyone can understand his language. We had to walk still farther than before, continuing to the left, a full bow's shot, to find another giant, huger and more fierce. What engineer it took to bind this brute, I cannot say, but there he was, one arm pinned to his back, the other locked in front, with a giant chin winding around him tight, which, starting from his neck, made 5 great coils, and that was counting only to his waist. This beast of pride decided he would try to pit his strength against Almighty Jove, my leader said, and he has won his prize. He's Ephialtes, who made his great attempt when the giants rose to fill the gods with panic. The arms he lifted then, he moves no more. And I to him, if it were possible, I would really like to have the chance to see the fantastic figure of Briareus. His answer was, not far from here you'll see Antaeus, who can speak and is not chained. He will set us down in the very pit of sin. The one you want to see is farther off. He too is bound and looks just like this one, except his expression, which is fiercer. No earthquake of the most outrageous force ever shook a tower with such violence as suddenly Ephialtes shook himself. I never feared to die as much as then, and my fear might have been enough to kill me if I had not already seen those chains. We left him and continued moving on, and came to where Antaeus stood, extending from the well to a good 5 ells up to his head. O you who in the celebrated valley that saw Scipio become the heir of glory, when Hannibal with all his men retreated, once captured 1,000 lions as your quarry, and with those whose aid had you chosen to take part in the great war with your brothers, the sons of earth, would, as many still think, have been the victors, do not disdain this modest wish. Take us and put us down where ice locks in Cocytus. Don't make us go to Titius or Tiphon. This man can give you what all long for here. So bend down and do not scowl at us. He still can spread your legend in the world, for he yet lives, and long life lies before him, unless grace summons him before his time. Thus spoke my master, and the giant in haste stretched out the hands whose formidable grip great Hercules once felt, and took my guide. And Virgil, when he felt the grasping hands, called out, Now come, and I'll take hold of you. Clasped together, we made a single burden. As the Garisenda looks from underneath its leaning side, at the moment when a cloud comes drifting over against the tower's slant, just so the bending giant Antaeus seemed as I looked up, expecting him to topple. I wished then I had gone another way. But he, most carefully, handed us down to the pit that swallows Lucifer with Judas. And then the leaning giant immediately drew himself up as tall as a ship's mast. Canto 32. If I had words, grating and crude enough, that really could describe this horrid hole supporting the converging weight of hell, I could squeeze out the juice of my memories to the last drop, but I don't have these words, and so I am reluctant to begin. To talk about the bottom of the universe the way it truly is no child's play, no task for tongues that gurgle baby talk. But may those heavenly ladies aid my verse who aided Amphion to wall in Thebes, that my words may tell exactly what I saw. O misbegotten rabble of all rabble who crowd this realm, hard even to describe, it were better you had lived as sheep or goats. When we reached a point of darkness in the well, below the giant's feet, farther down the slope, and I was gazing still at the high wall, I heard somebody say, Watch where you step. Be careful that you do not kick the heads of this brotherhood of miserable souls. At that I turned around and saw before me a lake of ice stretching beneath my feet, more like a sheet of glass than frozen water. In the depths of Austria's winter-time, the Danube never in all its course showed ice so thick, nor did the Don beneath its frigid sky, as this crust here, for if Mount Tombernik or Pietrapana would crash down upon it, not even at its edges would a crack creak. The way the frogs, in the season when the harvest will often haunt the dreams of the peasant girl, sit croaking with their muzzles out of water, so these livid, frigid shades were stuck in ice up to where a person's shame appears. Their teeth click notes like storks' beaks snapping shut. And each one kept his face bowed toward the ice. The mouth bore testimony to the cold, the eyes to sadness swelling in the heart. I gazed around a while and then looked down, and by my feet I saw two figures clasped so tight that one's hair could have been the other's. "Tell me, you two, pressing your chests together," I asked them, "who are you?" Both stretched their necks, and when they had their faces raised toward me, their eyes, which had before been only glazed, dripped tears down to their lips, and the cold froze the tears between them, locking the pair more tightly. Wood to wood with iron was never clamped so firm, and the two of them like billy goats were butting at each other, mad with anger. Another one, with both ears frozen off, and head still bowed over his icy mirror, cried out, "What makes you look at us so hard? If you're interested to know who these two are, the valley where Basinzio's waters flow belonged to them and to their father Albert. The same womb bore them both, and if you scour all of Caina, you will not turn up one who's more deserving of this frozen aspic. Not him who had his breast and shadow pierced with one thrust of the lance from Arthur's hand, not Focaccia, not even this one here, whose head gets in my way and blocks my view, known in the world as Sassol Mascheroni, and if you're Tuscan, you must know who he was. To save me from your asking for more news, I was Camicchion de Pazzi, and I await Carlin, whose guilt will make my own seem less." Farther on I saw 1,000 dog-like faces, purple from the cold. That's why I shudder, and always will, when I see a frozen pond. While we were getting closer to the center of the universe, where all weights must converge, and I was shivering in the eternal chill, by fate or chance, or willfully perhaps, I do not know, but stepping among the heads, my foot kicked hard against one of those faces. Weeping, he screamed, "Why are you kicking me? You have not come to take revenge on me for Monteperti, have you? Why bother me?" And I, "My master, please wait here for me. Let me clear up a doubt concerning this one. Then I shall be as rapid as you wish." My leader stopped, and to that wretch who still had not let up his barrage of curses, I said, "Who are you insulting other people? And you, who are you who march through Antenora kicking other people in the faces? No living man could kick as hard." He answered, "I am a living man," was my reply, "and it might serve you well, if you seek fame, for me to put your name down in my notes." And he said, "That's the last thing I would want. That's not the way to flatter in these lowlands. Stop pestering me like this. Get out of here." And I grabbed him by his hair and back and said, "You'd better tell me who you are, or else I'll not leave one hair on your head." And he to me, "Go on and strip me bald, and pound and stamp my head 1,000 times. You'll never hear my name or see my face." I had my fingers twisted in his hair, and already I'd pulled out more than one fistful, while he yelped like a cur with eyes tight shut, when someone else yelled, "What's the matter, Boca? It's bad enough to hear your shivering teeth. Now you bark? What the devil's wrong with you?" "There's no need now for you to speak," I said, "you vicious traitor. Now I know your name, and I'll bring back the shameful truth about you." "Go away," he answered. "Tell them what you want, but if you do get out of here, be sure you also tell about that blabbermouth who's paying here what the French silver cost him. I saw, you can tell the world, the one from Dueras stuck in with all the sinners keeping cool. And if you should be asked who else was there, right by your side is the one from Beccaria, whose head was chopped off by the Florentines. As for Gianni Soldanier, I think you'll find him further along with Ganelon and Tybalt, who opened up Faenza while it slept." Soon after leaving, I saw two souls frozen together in a single hole, so that one head used the other for a cap. As a man with hungry teeth tears into bread, the soul with capping head had sunk his teeth into the other's neck, just beneath the skull. Tydeus, in his fury, did not gnaw the head of Menalippus with more relish than this one chewed that head of meat and bones. "O you who show with every bestial bite your hatred for the head you are devouring," I said, Tell me your reason, and I promise, if you are justified in your revenge, once I know who you are and this other sin, I'll repay your confidence in the world above, unless my tongue dry up before I die. Canto 33. Lifting his mouth from his horrendous meal, this sinner first wiped off his messy lips, in the hair remaining on the chewed-up skull. Then spoke. You want me to renew a grief so desperate that just the thought of it, much less the telling, grips my heart with pain. But if my words can be the seed to bear the fruit of infamy for this betrayer, who feeds my hunger, then I shall speak in tears. I do not know your name, nor do I know how you have come down here, but Florentine you surely seem to be, to hear you speak. First you should know I was Count Ugolino, and my neighbor here, Ruggieri the Archbishop, and now I'll tell you why I'm so unneighborly. That I, trusting in him, was put in prison through his evil machinations, where I died, this much I surely do not have to tell you. What you could not have known, however, is the inhuman circumstances of my death. Now listen, then decide if he has wronged me. Through a narrow slit of window high in that mew, which is called the Tower of Hunger after me, and I'll not be the last to know that place, I had watched moon after moon after moon go by, when finally I dreamed the evil dream which ripped away the veil that hid my future. I dreamed of this one here as lord and huntsman, pursuing the wolf and the wolf cubs up the mountain, which blocks the sight of Lucca from the Pisans. With skinny bitches, well trained and obedient, he had out front as leaders of the pack Gualandi with Sismondi and Lanfranchi. A short run, and the father with his sons seemed to grow tired, and then I thought I saw long fangs sunk deep into their sides, ripped open. When I awoke before the light of dawn, I heard my children sobbing in their sleep. You see, they too were there, asking for bread. If the thought of what my heart was telling me does not fill you with grief, how cruel you are. If you are not weeping now, do you ever weep? And then they awoke. It was around the time they usually brought our food to us, but now each one of us was full of dread from dreaming. Then from below I heard them driving nails into that dreadful tower's door. With that, I stared in silence at my flesh and blood. I did not weep. I turned to stone inside. They wept, and my little Anselmuccio spoke. What is it, father? Why do you look that way? For them I held my tears back, saying nothing, all of that day, and then all of that night, until another sun shone on the world. A meager ray of sunlight found its way to the misery of our cell, and I could see myself reflected 4 times in their faces. I bit my hands in anguish, and my children, who thought that hunger made me bite my hands, were quick to draw up closer to me, saying, "Oh, father, you would make us suffer less if you would feed on us. You were the one who gave us the sad flesh. You take it from us." I calmed myself to make them less unhappy. That day we sat in silence, and the next day, "O pitiless earth, you should have swallowed us." The 4th day came, and it was on that day my Gado fell prostrate before my feet, crying, "Why don't you help me? Why, my father?" There he died. Just as you see me here, I saw the other 3 fall one by one, as the 5th day and the 6th passed, and I, by then gone blind, groped over their dead bodies. Though they were dead, 2 days I called their names. Then hunger proved more powerful than grief. He spoke these words, then glaring down in rage, attacked again the wretched skull with his teeth sharp as a dog's, and as fit for grinding bones. O Pisa, blot of shame upon the people of that fair land where the sound of sea is heard! Since your neighbors hesitate to punish you, let Capraia and Gorgona move and join, damming up the river Arno at its mouth, and let every Pisan perish in its flood. For if Count Ugolino was accused of turning traitor, trading in your castles, you had no right to make his children suffer. Their newborn years, O newborn Thebes, made them all innocents. Brigata, Uguiccioni, and the other 2 soft names my canto sings. We moved ahead to where the frozen water wraps in harsh wrinkles another sinful race, with faces not turned down but looking up. Here the weeping puts an end to weeping, and the grief that finds no outlet from the eyes turns inward to intensify the anguish. For the tears they first wept knotted in a cluster and made a visor for them in crystal, filled all the hollow part around their eyes. Although the bitter coldness of the dark had driven all sensation from my face, as though it were not tender skin but callous, I thought I felt the air begin to blow, and what causes such a wind, my master? I thought no heat could reach into these depths. And he, before long you will be where your own eyes can answer for themselves, and they will see what keeps this wind in motion. And one of the wretches with the frozen crust screamed out at us, O wicked souls, so wicked that you have been assigned the ultimate post, break off these hard veils covering my eyes, and give relief from the pain that swells my heart, at least until the new tears freeze again. I answered him, If this is what you want, tell me your name, and if I do not help you, may I be forced to drop beneath this ice. He answered then, I am Friar Albirigo. I am he who offered fruit from the evil orchard. Here dates are served me for the figs I gave. Oh then, I said, are you already dead? And he to me, just how my body is in the world above, I have no way of knowing. This zone of Ptolemaea is very special, for it often happens that a soul falls here before the time that Atropos should send it. And that you may more willingly scrape off my cluster of glass tears, let me tell you, whenever a soul betrays the way I did, a demon takes possession of the body, controlling its maneuvers from then on, for all the years it has to live up there, while the soul falls straight into this cistern here, and the shade in winter quarters just behind me may well have left his body up on earth. But you should know, if you've come from there, he is Ser Brancadorio, and many years have passed since he first joined us here, icebound. I think you're telling me a lie, I said, for Brancadoria is not dead at all. He eats and drinks, he sleeps and wears out clothes. The ditch the Malabranque watch above, he said, the ditch of clinging, boiling pitch, had not yet caught the soul of Miquel Zanque when Branca left a devil in his body to take his place, and so did his close kinsman, his accomplice in this act of treachery. But now, at last, give me the hand you promised. Open my eyes. I did not open them. To be mean to him was a generous reward. O all you Genovese, you men estranged from every good, at home with every vice, why can't the world be wiped clean of your race? For in company with Romagna's rankest soul I found one of your men, whose deeds were such that his soul bathes already in Cocytus, but his body seems alive and walks among you. Canto 34. Vexilla regis projuent inferni, my master said, closer to us, so now look ahead and see if you can make him out. A far-off windmill turning its huge sails when a thick fog begins to settle in, or when the light of day begins to fade. That is what I thought I saw appearing, and the gusts of wind it stirred made me shrink back behind my guide, my only means of cover. Down here, I stood on soles fixed under ice. I tremble as I put this into verse. To me they look like straws worked into glass. Some lying flat, some perpendicular, either with their heads up or their feet, and some bent head to foot, shaped like a bow. When we had moved far enough along the way that my master thought the time had come to show me the creature who was once so beautiful, he stepped aside, and stopping me, announced, This is he, this is Dis, this is the place that calls for all the courage you have in you. How chilled and nerveless, reader, I felt then. Do not ask me, I cannot write about it. There are no words to tell you how I felt. I did not die, I was not living either. Try to imagine, if you can imagine, me there, deprived of life and death at once. The king of the vast kingdom of all grief stuck out with half his chest above the ice. My height is closer to the height of giants than theirs is to the length of his great arms. Consider now how large all of him was, this body in proportion to his arms. If once he was as fair as now he's foul, and dared to raise his brows against his Maker, it is fitting that all grief should spring from him. Oh, how amazed I was when I looked up and saw a head, one head wearing three faces. One was in front, and that was a bright red. The other two attached themselves to this one just above the middle of each shoulder, and at the crown all three were joined in one. The right face was a blend of white and yellow, the left the color of those people's skin who live along the river Nile's descent. Beneath each face, two mighty wings stretched out, the size you might expect of this huge bird. I never saw a ship with larger sails. Not feathered wings, but rather like the ones a bat would have. He flapped them constantly, keeping three winds continuously in motion, to lock Cocytus eternally in ice. He wept from his 6 eyes, and down 3 chins were dripping tears all mixed with bloody slaver. In each of his 3 mouths he crunched a sinner, with teeth like those that rake the hemp and flax, keeping those 3 sinners constantly in pain. The one in front, the biting he endured, was nothing like the clawing that he took. Sometimes his back was raked clean of all its skin. That soul up there who suffers most of all, my guide explained, is Judas Iscariot, the one with head inside and legs out kicking. As for the other 2, whose heads stick out, the one who hangs from that black face is Brutus. See how he squirms in silent desperation. The other one is Cassius. He still looks sturdy, but soon it will be night. Now is the time to leave this place, for we have seen it all. I held on to his neck, as he told me to. While we watched and waited for the time and place, and when the wings were stretched out just enough, he grabbed onto the shaggy sides of Satan. Then downward, tuft by tuft, he made his way between the tangled hair and frozen crust. When we had reached the point exactly where the thigh begins, right at the haunch's curve, my guide, with strain and force of every muscle, turned his head toward the shaggy shanks of Dis, and grabbed the hair as if about to climb. I thought that we were heading back to hell. "Hold on, there is no other way," he said, panting, exhausted. "Only by these stairs can we leave behind the evil we have seen." When he had got me through the rocky crevice, he raised me to its edge and set me down, then carefully he climbed and joined me there. I raised my eyes, expecting I would see the half of Lucifer I saw before. Instead, I saw his 2 legs stretching upward. If at that sight I found myself confused, so will those simple-minded folk who still don't see what point it was I must have passed. "Get up," my master said. "Get to your feet. The way is long, the road a rough climb up. Already the sun approaches middle tierce." It was no palace promenade we came to, but rather like some dungeon nature built. It was paved with broken stone and poorly lit. "Before we start to struggle out of here, O master," I said when I was on my feet, "I wish you would explain some things to me. Where is the ice, and how can he be lodged upside down? And how in so little time could the sun go all the way from night to day?" "You think you're still on the center's other side," he said, "where I first grabbed the hairy worm of rottenness that pierces the earth's core. And you were there as long as I moved downward. But when I turned myself, you passed the point to which all weight from every part is drawn. Now we are standing beneath the hemisphere, which is opposite the side covered by land, where at the central point was sacrificed the man whose birth and life were free of sin. You have both feet upon a little sphere whose other side Judeca occupies. And it is morning here, there it is evening, and he whose hairs were stairs for our descent has not changed his position since the fall. When he fell from the heavens on this side, all of the land that once was spread out here, alarmed by his plunge, took cover beneath the sea, and moved to our hemisphere. With equal fear the mountain land, piled up on this side, fled and made this cavern here when it rushed upward. Below somewhere there is a space as far from Beelzebub as the limit of his tomb, not known by sight but only by the sound, of a little stream that makes its way down here through the hollow of a rock that it has worn, gently winding in gradual descent. My guide and I entered that hidden road to make our way back up to the bright world. We never thought of resting while we climbed. We climbed, he first and I behind, until, through a small round opening ahead of us, I saw the lovely things the heaven holds, and we came out to see once more the stars.